Greetings, dear subscribers and casual listeners of my channel. Fans often wonder, does the author actually know how their story will end? This question becomes especially relevant when a series concludes with a weak finale or unresolved plotlines. J.K. Rowling wasn't spared this criticism, but the truth goes much deeper. If you look closely, you'll find tiny clues, metaphors, and symbols hidden throughout all 7 books that, in hindsight, reveal her true intentions. Today we're going to break down these subtle hints, and you might just reread the series with an entirely new perspective. Enjoy the video. Number 1. Snape's loyalty. The faux glass gave it away too soon. Many fans doubted Severus Snape's allegiance until the very end, but there's an early clue hidden in the Goblet of Fire. When Barty Crouch Jr., disguised as Moody, leads Harry to his office, they are followed by Dumbledore, Professor McGonagall, and Snape. This is seen in the faux glass, a magical object that reflects enemies approaching. If Snape appeared in the faux glass of Barty Crouch Jr., one of Voldemort's most devoted followers, then what does that say about Snape's loyalty to the Dark Lord? This small magical mirror unintentionally revealed a major truth. Snape was never truly on the side people thought he was. Number 2. The truth behind Voldemort's curse and its long-term impact. There's a popular legend at Hogwarts. After being denied the position of defense against the dark arts professor, Tom Riddle cursed the job, and no teacher lasted more than a year since. It sounds like the tantrum of a spurned youth, but the implications are deeper. In the later books, the Ministry of Magic buys a large batch of protective products from the Weasley twins because their own staff can't produce effective defense spells. Coincidence? Unlikely. Voldemort didn't just want revenge. He wanted to weaken future generations of wizards so they'd be powerless against the dark. Number 3. Ginny's victory, but not just on the Quidditch pitch. Many fans were surprised that Harry didn't end up with Hermione but with Ginny Weasley. However, Rowling planted the seed for this choice as early as the Order of the Phoenix. During the final Quidditch match, Ginny becomes the Seeker and outflies Cho Chang, Harry's ex. It's more than just a game, it's a symbolic duel for Harry's heart. Rowling later confirmed that Ginny won not only on the field, but also in Harry's affections. Number 4. The sevenfold Harry, a mirror to the Horcruxes. The number 7 echoes constantly throughout the saga. Voldemort splits his soul into 7 parts to achieve immortality, and Harry, though unintentionally, is also split into 7 during the Order's mission to move him to safety. 6 friends take Polyjuice Potion to become decoys. The contrast is key. Voldemort divides himself for power. Harry's friends do it out of love. One acts from fear of death, the others from loyalty and courage. This elegant symbolism becomes clearer on a reread. Number 5. The werewolf metaphor, a tale of prejudice. Remus Lupin is one of the saga's most tragic and beloved characters. His lycanthropy is not just a magical condition, but a metaphor for societal stigma. Werewolves are feared, shunned, and discriminated against, even when kind, brilliant, and loyal. Rowling later confirmed that lycanthropy symbolizes HIV/AIDS and other illnesses society treats as blame rather than tragedy. Lupin represents all those who suffer in silence. His story isn't just a fantasy, it's a protest against injustice. Number 6. The Sorting Hat and Slytherin. Why did the Sorting Hat suggest Slytherin to Harry? He wasn't ambitious or cunning. Some fans believe the hat sensed the piece of Voldemort's soul inside Harry, and that's what it recognized. The hat said Harry could achieve greatness in Slytherin, but perhaps it wasn't talking about him, but the dark presence within. The entire concept of houses is controversial. Slytherins are stereotyped as villains, and the hat itself has warned about this bias in its songs. Number 7. The Sword of Gryffindor, a reflection of Harry himself. The Sword of Gryffindor isn't just a shiny relic, it's a metaphor. It absorbs only what makes it stronger, just as Harry absorbs his trials and turns them into strength. Voldemort used powerful objects as Horcruxes, thinking they'd make him invincible. Harry, on the other hand, received the sword as a gift and used it to destroy those same Horcruxes. The symbolism is clear. Voldemort filled objects with fragments of a shattered soul. Harry, in contrast, became more whole with every challenge. Number 8. Ron's chess match. In Philosopher's Stone, Ron climbs onto the back of a giant knight and takes control of the enchanted chessboard. He studies the field, makes the calls, then gives the order that changes everything. "Not me! You need to go on. I'm going to sacrifice myself." He allows the enemy queen to strike him down so Harry and Hermione can move forward. At 11 years old, Ron Weasley shows what he's made of, not just loyalty, but strategy, bravery, and self-sacrifice. That chess match is more than a puzzle. It's a prophecy. The trio's journey through the series follows the same shape. Harry is the final player. Hermione is the mind. Ron is the heart, the one who's willing to break for the others to win. Again and again, Ron gives something up. In Chamber of Secrets, he drives the flying car into the Whomping Willow. In Deathly Hallows, he leaves, then returns, destroying the Locket Horcrux at great emotional cost. He suffers, he struggles, but he never stops choosing his friends. Even Dumbledore's strategy against Voldemort mirrors that game. He places players like Snape, Lupin, Moody, and eventually Harry on the board. Each plays a role, often one they don't fully understand. Some are sacrificed, some survive. But Ron's first move on that chessboard is a lesson we carry to the end. Victory in this world doesn't come from brute force. It comes from trust, timing, and knowing when to give up something for something greater. Ron knew that from the very start. Number 9. George Weasley's ear and the twin symbolism. In Deathly Hallows, during the escape from Privet Drive, George Weasley loses an ear. "Saint-like," Fred jokes, "you're holy." Get it? It's a moment of dark humor in a night filled with chaos and fear. But behind the joke, something deeper stirs. George's injury isn't just a battle wound. It's a shadow of what's to come. The twins, always one soul in two bodies, are about to be torn apart forever. Fred and George were never meant to be separated. They finished each other's sentences. They invented together, laughed together, lived as mirror images. George losing an ear is more than physical damage. It's Rowling planting a seed of dread, a symbol, a warning. George, now incomplete, walks through the rest of the book not just with a wound, but with a missing half. It's no accident that later Fred dies in the Battle of Hogwarts. The joke from earlier becomes a bitter echo. After Fred's death, George carries silence where laughter used to be. His inventions still work, the shop still stands, but something essential is missing. The ear was the beginning, the brother was the end. Rowling uses this detail to show that even in war, loss doesn't always strike with a scream, it starts with a whisper. And for George, that whisper began the night the sky lit up with curses and he heard only half of the world ever again. Number 10. Thestrals, the harbingers of war. When Harry returns to Hogwarts in Order of the Phoenix, something is different. The carriages no longer glide through the air, pulled by nothing. Now he sees creatures, bony, winged, dragon-like. Their eyes are milky, their bodies skeletal. Thestrals. He gasps. No one else sees them. "You're not mad," Luna Lovegood says. "I can see them too." That moment says more than any prophecy. Harry has crossed a threshold. He has seen death, and it has changed him. Thestrals are not just creatures. They are symbols. They mark the end of childhood and the beginning of something colder. After Cedric Diggory's death, Harry is no longer a boy who stumbled into adventure. He's a young man who knows what it means to lose someone. The Thestrals don't bring fear, they bring truth. A new world has opened, one where safety is gone and choices now carry weight. Their appearance also warns the reader. From this book on, the tone shifts. No more games or secret hallways. The Ministry turns on its own people. Dumbledore is attacked by politics. Sirius dies. War begins. The Thestrals are the quiet bell that rings before everything falls apart. Only those who have suffered can see them. And by the end of the series, most of Harry's generation will. J.K. Rowling never uses magic just for spectacle. The Thestrals don't just pull carriages, they carry grief. They whisper to the reader, the real battle is not between spells, but between hope and despair. And the moment you see a Thestral, you understand you're in the fight now. Number 11, Draco Malfoy's wand. Draco Malfoy's wand changes everything. It happens quietly without anyone realizing the weight of the moment. At Malfoy Manor, Harry disarms Draco, not in a duel, not with fury, but in desperation and defense. The wand leaps to Harry, and with it something deeper, allegiance. The wand chooses the wizard, Ollivander once said, but here the wand chooses mercy. This small act, disarming rather than destroying, becomes the thread that unravels Voldemort's plan. The Dark Lord believes mastery comes through power. He believes he controls the Elder Wand because he killed Snape. But he's wrong. The wand belongs to Harry not because Harry killed, but because he spared. "I'm the true master of the Elder Wand," Harry says at the end. And he's right, not because of violence, but because of choice. Rat hides the key to victory in an unexpected place, not in ancient relics or forbidden spells, but in compassion. Harry's humanity is what wins the war. By taking Draco's wand with kindness, he undoes Voldemort's chain of violence. A single decision, a spared life, a wand exchanged without hatred. This is how darkness is defeated, not with curses, but with mercy. Number 12, Aragog's death as an omen. When Aragog dies in Half-Blood Prince, the scene feels almost quiet. Hagrid weeps. Slughorn seizes the moment to collect venom. Harry watches it all, uneasy. But this isn't just a farewell to a spider. It's the funeral of something bigger, the last breath of the magical wilderness that once fascinated him. Aragog belonged to the old days, the forest, the mystery, the childhood, where danger still felt like adventure. That world is gone now, buried under dirt, beside Hagrid's hut. Moments later, Harry slips Felix Felicis into his pocket and heads into Slughorn's office. It's not a child's curiosity guiding him anymore, but a mission. This is the night he learns the truth about Horcruxes. That Voldemort ripped his soul into pieces. That defeating him won't just take courage, it will take knowledge, sacrifice, and blood. The death of Aragog doesn't just clear the way for this discovery, it signals a shift from innocence to understanding, from myth to war. J.K. Rowling placed that scene with precision. Aragog, the creature from Harry's second year, once terrified him. Now his death barely registers compared to the darkness that's coming. The boy who once feared the spider now prepares to face the man who split his soul. A new chapter begins, and it starts with a grave. Number 13, the Mirror of Erised and its secret meaning. In a forgotten room behind a hidden door, Harry Potter first stood before the Mirror of Erised. Its frame whispered an ancient truth. Erised stra eru oit ube kafru oit on voici. Read backwards, it told you everything. I show not your face, but your heart's desire. Harry didn't understand the danger. He only saw his family, smiling and alive. For a boy who had known nothing but loneliness, it was a dream too powerful to resist. He returned night after night, spellbound by an illusion that offered warmth without cost. Dumbledore knew better. It does not do to dwell on dreams and forget to live, he told Harry gently. The warning seemed soft, almost fatherly, but it was a foreshadowing. Rowling placed that line like a quiet seed. Over the next 6 books, Harry would face pain, death, betrayal, and choices far more difficult than turning away from a mirror. Slowly, the boy who once clung to illusions became a young man who could let them go. He stopped looking backward and started acting forward. By the time Harry walks into the Forbidden Forest in the Deathly Hallows ready to die, there is no mirror, no comforting vision, no fantasy to escape into, only reality. He carries no illusions of glory, no hope of reunion. He simply walks. It is the purest form of courage, not the absence of fear, but the acceptance of truth. In that moment, the boy who once stared into the mirror is gone. In his place stands someone who understands what Dumbledore meant all along. The mirror of Erised was never about wish fulfillment. It was a test, a warning. Rowling gave us a symbol of the most dangerous magic, not curses or dark spells, but the seduction of what we most want to be true. Harry passed the test by choosing action over longing. And in doing so, he proved that growing up isn't about losing hope, it's about learning to live without needing illusion. Number 14, Arthur Weasley's fascination with Muggle things. Arthur Weasley's obsession with Muggle inventions is first played for laughs. A grown wizard enchanted by rubber ducks and plugs seems ridiculous. His garage overflows with batteries, car parts, and broken radios. What exactly is the function of a rubber duck? He asks Harry, with genuine curiosity in the Chamber of Secrets. To many, Arthur is a harmless eccentric, but his fascination is more than a running joke. It's a quiet rebellion. He sees something others don't. Most pure-blood wizards dismiss Muggles as primitive. Arthur instead studies them. He admires their creativity without magic. While the Ministry is busy restricting Muggle artifacts, Arthur tries to understand them. He enchants a Ford Anglia to fly, not to show off, but to explore. In a society that clings to tradition, Arthur experiments. His work foreshadows something bigger than anyone realizes. By the time Deathly Hallows begins, the world has changed. Voldemort has returned. The Resistance hides and scrambles for communication. Magic alone is no longer enough. The Order of the Phoenix uses Potterwatch, an underground radio broadcast that keeps hope alive. The station runs on both magic and Muggle tech. Lee Jordan, Kingsley Shacklebolt, and even Lupin rely on it. What once seemed like Arthur's pointless hobby becomes essential for survival. After the war, Rowling confirms in interviews that the magical world starts to evolve. Wizards slowly open their eyes to Muggle innovations. Arthur was ahead of his time. He saw the value of understanding, not superiority. His fascination with Muggle gadgets wasn't foolish, it was prophetic. In a world torn apart by the fear of difference, Arthur Weasley quietly built a bridge, one battery at a time. Number 15. The hidden message in Dumbledore's name. When readers first encountered the headmaster of Hogwarts, they were immediately struck by his eccentricity. From his half-moon spectacles to the peculiar way he spoke of socks and lemon drops, Albus Dumbledore seemed like a whimsical old man, hiding great power behind a facade of pleasant riddles. But hidden within his very name, Albus Percival Wulfric Brian Dumbledore was a carefully crafted riddle in itself. J.K. Rowling did not choose these names randomly. Each one was a brushstroke in a grand portrait, a coded message for those who looked closely. Dumbledore's name was not merely long and grand, it was a cipher of his soul. Albus is the first key. In Latin it means white, the colour of light, purity, and wisdom. Dumbledore, the white wizard in a world of growing shadows, bore this meaning not just in name, but in action. He stood as a beacon of guidance in dark times, the counterpoint to Lord Voldemort's descent into darkness. In The Half-Blood Prince, when he lifts his wand in the cave, summoning fire to repel the Inferi, it is a literal act of light, battling death. Rowling chose Albus to symbolize the essence of his role, the Lightbringer, the wise old sage who guards the threshold between ignorance and understanding. Yet Albus is only the beginning. The second name, Percival, invokes ancient myth. Percival was one of the knights of King Arthur's Round Table, remembered for his quest to find the Holy Grail. It is no coincidence that Dumbledore too was on a quest for sacred objects, the Deathly Hallows. He believed them to be real and sought them as a way to master death, not for power, but perhaps for redemption. Do not pity the dead, Harry, pity the living, and above all, those who live without love, he tells Harry. In the Deathly Hallows, that quest for the Hallows mirrors Percival's journey toward divine knowledge, a journey fraught with tests of the soul. The name Wulfric adds another layer, derived from the Germanic words for wolf and power. It suggests raw strength tempered by wisdom. There was a real Saint Wulfric in the 12th century, a hermit renowned for his prophetic visions and fierce devotion. He lived in seclusion, but was visited by kings for his counsel. Dumbledore, though not a hermit, is spiritually similar. He is often alone, often burdened by knowledge that isolates him. He holds immense power to defeat Grindelwald, to guide the Order of the Phoenix, but he wields it with a painful awareness of its cost. "I was not to be trusted with power," he admits to Harry's vision in King's Cross. Wulfric's legacy lives in the headmaster's restraint. Brian, the final middle name, feels mundane by comparison, a simple, common British name. It seems like an afterthought, yet it's deliberate. Rowling once explained that Brian was added to ground the character, to show that beneath the legend there was still a man, a boy who once dreamed of greatness, a brother who made mistakes, a friend who loved and lost. It's a reminder that even the wisest wizard of his age began as a boy in Godric's Hollow, hungry for knowledge, blind to consequence. When Ariana dies, when Grindelwald flees, and when guilt sets in, Brian becomes the only part of his name that matters, the human part, the flawed part. Together, these four names form a code as elegant and complex as any enchantment. They speak to Dumbledore's essence, the light of Albus, the seeker of Percival, the strength of Wulfric, and the humility of Brian. His name is a story unto itself. And then, of course, there is Dumbledore. A whimsical, musical word, it refers to an Old English term for a bumblebee. Rowling said she imagined him humming to himself around the castle, but beneath its whimsy lies duality. Bumblebees are small but relentless. They defy logic by flying at all, and so does Dumbledore, defying his past, his pain, and his enemies. He buzzes softly through the narrative, but his sting, when it comes, is mighty. This coded name foreshadows everything about him. When he guides Harry through the trapdoor to face Quirrell, he is the White Guardian. When he duels Voldemort in the Ministry of Magic, his power is unmistakable. When he pleads with Snape to kill him, Severus, please, we see both his fallibility and his plan. Each of these moments is embedded in his name. Consider the symbolic alignment with other characters. Voldemort is an anagram, Tom Marvel a riddle, hiding "I am Lord Voldemort." It is a name built on the rejection of origins. Dumbledore's name, in contrast, is an embrace of complexity. He is not ashamed of the many lives he has lived, the brother, the scholar, the soldier, the headmaster. His identity is layered but whole. Rowling crafts these naming devices to contrast ideology. Voldemort as the fractured self, Dumbledore as the integrated self. His name even echoes in the Hallows themselves, the Elder Wand, the Resurrection Stone, the Invisibility Cloak. 3 objects, 3 temptations. Dumbledore touches all of them. He masters the wand. He uses the stone. He possesses the cloak briefly. Each Hallow corresponds to a part of him, the wand to Wulfric's power, the stone to Percival's search, the cloak to Brian's humility. It's no accident that his full name mirrors these themes. The Hallows are the external manifestation of his internal war. In the Goblet of Fire, we glimpse another angle. When Harry tells Dumbledore that Voldemort used his blood to return, Dumbledore's reaction is uncharacteristically intense. His expression was full of something like fear. The text reads, "Here the light of Albus falters. The humanity of Brian shines through. He is not invincible. He knows the cost of mistakes, especially his own." Rowling also uses Dumbledore's name to invite speculation. Why this combination of names? Why not others? The answer lies in Rowling's understanding of mythology. She treats names like spells. They summon archetypes. Dumbledore, like Gandalf or Merlin, becomes more than a man. He is the wise old wizard. But Rowling doesn't let him rest there. Through his full name, she reveals that even archetypes have ghosts. Number 16, Hermione and her Dragonheart. Hermione Granger hurled the thick volume of A History of Magic out the window of the Gryffindor common room in a moment that passed almost like comic relief. It was easy to laugh. The dreariness of Professor Binns' lifeless lectures could drive anyone to madness. Yet the moment lingered, not just for its absurdity, but for what it foreshadowed. That casual act, so unlike Hermione's usual reverence for books and rules, revealed something most overlooked at first. Beneath the polished surface of a rule-following, grade-obsessed student burned a dragon's heart. From her earliest days at Hogwarts, Hermione was shaped in the eyes of her peers, and perhaps in the eyes of many readers, as the archetypal overachiever. She memorized spells before they were taught, scolded others for breaking rules, and buried herself in the library at every opportunity. Ron, ever the voice of everyman's students, once exclaimed, "You're a nightmare, honestly." But buried within Hermione's meticulousness was a different kind of fire, a selective rebellion, and ruling with the lightest of touches began sowing its seeds from the beginning. The scene with a history of magic is more than comic relief. It is a whisper, a foreshadowing. Hermione, the girl who once declared proudly, "We could have been killed, or worse, expelled," does something out of character, even shocking. She discards a textbook, the very symbol of everything she is supposed to be. This is not mere frustration, it's resistance, a moment of rupture between who Hermione is told to be and who she is becoming, and Rowling plants that seed in the first book. Rowling understood her characters on a cellular level. Each gesture, each line of dialogue, each moment of choice ripples with hidden meaning. Hermione's transformation was never abrupt. It was a slow burn, a flame ignited not by anger but by moral clarity, a sense of justice that would ultimately overpower her love for structure. That throw from the common room was the first flare of the dragon inside her, and it would not be the last. By the time we reach the Deathly Hallows, the transformation is complete. Hermione, whose identity was so tightly woven into her academic excellence and orderliness, becomes someone capable of unimaginable sacrifice. She performs one of the most painful spells in the series, not on an enemy, not in battle, but on the people she loves the most. She erases herself from her parents' memory. She had made them believe that they were different people, that their life's ambition was to move to Australia. She does not just burn a bridge, she annihilates the road behind her. This is not the act of a teacher's pet. This is the act of someone willing to give up everything, her family, her identity, her very existence in the eyes of those she loves, to fight for what is right. No professor asked her to do it, no ministry mandate guided her. She did it because she chose the path of resistance, even when it was unthinkably painful. There is something heartbreakingly noble in Hermione's arc. While Harry is burdened with destiny and Ron with loyalty, Hermione chooses her battles. She becomes the conscience of the trio. Her decision to fight for house elf rights through SPW in Goblet of Fire was ridiculed by many as a side plot, but it is deeply emblematic of who she is. No one else cared. The cause was unpopular. Even the elves rejected her help. But she persisted. She saw injustice, and she refused to look away. In Order of the Phoenix, she takes this defiance further, standing against the ministry itself. When the official curriculum at Hogwarts begins to deny the truth about Voldemort's return, Hermione initiates Dumbledore's army. It is her idea, not Harry's. She arranges the meeting at the Hog's Head. She crafts the enchanted coins for communication. She becomes the logistical mind behind the rebellion. She is, in essence, organizing a student resistance against authoritarian control, while still attending her classes and earning top marks. This is the Hermione who discarded a history of magic. Not the rule follower, but the systems breaker. The one who understands that some rules are not worth keeping. And it is worth noting that in the very book where she throws that textbook, she is the first to realize that breaking the rules may be the only way forward. Books and cleverness. There are more important things, friendship and bravery. Rowling laces her evolution into even the most mundane details. When the trio infiltrates the Ministry in Deathly Hallows, Hermione disguises herself as Mafalda Hopkirk. The role requires her to engage with the brutal bureaucracy of a magical regime, but rather than blend in silently, she challenges it. When she sees the interrogation of a muggle-born witch named Mary Cattermole, Hermione cannot stay neutral. Her voice breaks as she speaks. "You're lying, filthy mudblood!" shouts Umbridge. But Hermione does not flinch. The same girl who once followed Umbridge's decree now leads the resistance. Even her wand, Vinewood, with a dragon heartstring core, is symbolic. Vinewood, in wand lore, is tied to those with a greater purpose, a vision beyond themselves. And the dragon heartstring? It is the most powerful and temperamental of wand cores. It requires daring, force, and a certain moral fire. The core is not a coincidence. Rowling chose it deliberately. The dragon has always been within Hermione, dormant but never absent. In Half-Blood Prince, when the Ministry flails and fails to protect the wizarding world, Hermione no longer hides behind its laws. She openly questions its competence. She sees through its propaganda. She is, at heart, a revolutionary. She understands what Harry only begins to grasp, that institutions are only as good as the people within them, and when corrupted, they must be opposed, not obeyed. One of the most revealing scenes comes in Deathly Hallows when Hermione, surrounded by danger, insists on taking the tales of Beedle the Bard seriously. Ron shrugs off the stories as children's tales. Harry is skeptical. But Hermione knows folklore contains truth. She believes in the power of myth, the way it shapes moral vision. It is she who deciphers the Deathly Hallows symbol, who sees the link between fable and future. She is not just a reader of books, she is a translator of meaning. Number 17, Hedwig more than a pet. Of all the losses Harry Potter endures, the death of his snowy owl Hedwig in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows is one of the most understated, yet profoundly symbolic. Readers were shocked when she was struck down during the chaotic escape from Privet Drive, but very few realized the deeper meaning behind this moment. On the surface, her death seems like just another tragedy in a book filled with them. But J.K. Rowling, ever the master of foreshadowing and thematic layering, wove into Hedwig's passing a powerful message. The definitive end of Harry's childhood. Hedwig's presence begins as early as the Sorcerer's Stone, not merely as a pet, but as a magical lifeline, Harry's first connection to the world that would change everything. When Hagrid buys her in Diagon Alley, she is not just a birthday gift, she is a symbol of freedom and identity. Until that point, Harry had never had a friend, much less something of his own. Harry couldn't believe it. He was going to have a real owl, the book reads. In a life filled with loneliness and hand-me-downs, Hedwig was his first belonging, a companion he didn't have to share or hide. She becomes more than a creature. She is his link to the wizarding world when he returns each summer to the suffocating reality of the Dursleys. When he's locked in his room in Chamber of Secrets, it is Hedwig who shares his imprisonment, hooting in protest, flapping against her cage. She is the visual manifestation of Harry's double life, locked away from Hogwarts, but never entirely removed from it. The snowy owl reminds him, and us, that he belongs to something more than the cupboard under the stairs. Over time, she evolves into a silent guardian. Her keen instincts, intelligence, and loyalty are unshakable. In The Goblet of Fire, when Harry needs to send messages that are too important for anyone else to handle, he turns to Hedwig. "I want you to deliver this to Sirius. Make sure no one sees you." There is trust, deep and instinctual, that no other character, not even Ron or Hermione, commands in the same way. She flies through danger, through storms, across great distances, always returning. In many ways, Hedwig is Harry's emotional compass. When he feels isolated, she is there. When he feels joy, she shares in it. When he is frustrated or frightened, she absorbs the tension. Her silence is never cold, it is contemplative, protective. Rowling doesn't burden her with human traits, but she imbues Hedwig with just enough sentience to make her more than an animal. She feels like a living memory, a frozen moment from a time when magic was still new and exhilarating. That is what makes her death so jarring. It occurs, suddenly, brutally, in a burst of light during the flight from Privet Drive. One moment she is alive, then a jet of green light, and she is gone. Rowling describes it in a single, devastating sentence. The owl screeched and fell to the floor of the cage. There's no fanfare, no grand goodbye, just a flash, a cry, and silence. And with it, the last vestige of Harry's innocence vanishes into the night sky. This was no narrative accident. Rowling later confirmed in interviews that Hedwig's death was intentional and deeply symbolic. In her words, it represented the loss of innocence and the end of childhood. Harry doesn't just lose a friend, he loses the last living piece of who he was before the war truly began. The moment marks his passage from boyhood into the grim reality of war. It is the author's way of stripping away all that remains of the safe, comforting elements of his past. What is especially cruel and brilliant about this symbolism is how sudden it is. Readers expect the deaths of heroes in battle, of mentors like Dumbledore, of comrades like Sirius or Fred, but a pet, a bird, it feels almost too much. And that is precisely the point. War does not discriminate between soldier and symbol, between human and hope. In taking Hedwig, Rowling takes from Harry and from us the idea that anything is safe anymore. Harry's reaction is muted yet telling. He doesn't scream or collapse. He doesn't have time to mourn. He simply stares and continues flying. That silence, that numbness, is chilling. He has entered the phase of the story where grief must be swallowed if he is to survive. In that cold moment above the clouds, with curses flashing around him, Harry becomes a soldier. The boy who once marveled at floating candles in the Great Hall is now dodging death at every turn. Hedwig's fall is not just her death, it is his transformation. The very structure of the Deathly Hallows supports this shift. Everything about the final book is darker, more adult, and unrelentingly serious. Gone are the light-hearted moments, the school year rituals, the Quidditch matches. The death of Hedwig happens early in the story and it sets the tone. No more safety, no more school robes and butterbeer. This is war. And in war, even the innocent die. Interestingly, Hedwig's symbolism runs even deeper when we consider her species. The snowy owl in mythology and folklore is often associated with wisdom, purity, and guidance. In Native American stories, owls are messengers, sometimes even harbingers of death. In Greek mythology, they are companions to Athena, goddess of wisdom and warfare. That Rowling chose a snowy owl for Harry, white, rare, majestic, is no coincidence. From the very beginning, she aligned this bird with light, knowledge, and moral clarity. But as the series progresses, the lines between good and evil blur. Characters we trusted betray us. Enemies show signs of humanity. By the time Hedwig dies, Harry has already learned not to trust blindly. He questions Dumbledore's intentions. He wrestles with moral ambiguities. And so the owl, pure, loyal, unwavering, can no longer exist in a world so clouded by complexity. Her presence would contradict the grim truths Harry must now confront. In this way, her death is not just symbolic, it is necessary. Number 18. Magic Mirrors, Hints Through Reflection. In the cold silence of an abandoned classroom at Hogwarts, Harry Potter stood in front of a mirror taller than a man, framed in gold, carved with runes that glowed faintly. The Mirror of Erised, a name that, when read backward, whispered the haunting truth: desire. In that glass, Harry didn't see his tousled hair or thin frame. He saw his mother's eyes and his father's proud smile. In that reflection he saw what he could never have, not in the real world. It was his first encounter with a magical mirror, but far from his last. What seemed like a simple device of wonder was in truth a key, Joanne Rowling's secret metaphor for truth hidden in emotion, loss, and longing. The Mirror of Erised revealed not the future or the past, but a twisted version of the present, filtered through hope. Harry returned to it night after night, haunted by the vision. And Dumbledore's words lingered with chilling gravity. It does not do to dwell on dreams and forget to live. Here lay the first clue. Rowling's mirrors were not meant to offer comfort. They were temptations and warnings. What we see in them is real only in the heart, and even that can be dangerous. Years later, in the Department of Mysteries, another kind of reflective surface appeared, a vast archway known as the Veil, with a fluttering, translucent curtain. Though not technically a mirror, it served the same symbolic role. When Sirius Black was struck by Bellatrix's curse and fell through, Harry waited, breath held, expecting his godfather to re-emerge. The curtain shimmered, reflected light in strange ways, and then was still. The world beyond the veil was unreachable, yet felt only a breath away. Once again, Rowling used the illusion of a reflective boundary to separate life from death, desire from reality. Mirrors, veils, and glass. They were all doors that didn't open. The connection between Sirius and Harry continued even in absence. In Order of the Phoenix, Sirius gives Harry a magical two-way mirror, a relic from a time before Azkaban, a communication device between best friends. But when Harry finally remembers it, Sirius is already gone. He speaks into it desperately, begging for a voice that will never come. The object reflects not a face, but Harry's own guilt. I should have used it, he thinks. Maybe I could have warned him. Maybe I could have saved him. It's not just a mirror, it's a grave. That two-way mirror becomes a ghost of its own. In Half-Blood Prince, Harry keeps the fragment close. It's cracked, broken, a jagged reflection of his failure. And in Deathly Hallows, the mirror once again shows a face, an eye, blue and watchful. Aberforth Dumbledore, Albus's estranged brother, watches over Harry through this shard. Protection comes from someone Harry doesn't even know, through an object tied to someone he couldn't save. Rowling does not waste symbolism. The broken mirror protects, because even in grief there can be redemption. Throughout the series, reflections become crossroads between fate and understanding. Consider Tom Riddle's diary. It's not a mirror, but it functions as one. It reflects back a version of the past, filtered through Riddle's manipulations. When Ginny writes into it, the diary responds. She sees her own thoughts mirrored, warped, returned with dark insight. It's a reverse mirror, a trap disguised as connection. Rowling repurposes reflection here as deception. What we pour into something can be returned twisted if the vessel is cursed. Even the pensive echoes the mirror motif. It allows one to see memories, raw and unfiltered. Dumbledore uses it to show Harry the truth about Voldemort's origin, Snape's anguish, and his own past mistakes. The pensive is a pool, reflective like a mirror, but deeper. It doesn't just show what we want, it shows what was. Yet even here, Rowling builds complexity. Memory is fallible. What we see is not always the whole story. But unlike the mirror of Erised, the pensive demands engagement, not passive longing. To understand, Harry must dive in, he must confront. What Rowling hides in plain sight is this. Mirrors in the wizarding world are never just objects. They are moral riddles. In every case, they lure the character with the promise of something else. Truth, connection, clarity, but they always cost something. With Erised, Harry risks addiction to fantasy. With the two-way mirror, he inherits guilt. With the veil, he is shown the finality of loss. The message is clear. Reflection is not salvation. It is confrontation. In Philosopher's Stone, Quirrell, possessed by Voldemort, also gazes into the mirror of Erised. He sees the stone being handed to him, though he cannot retrieve it. Dumbledore's enchantment blocks him, for only someone who wanted to find the stone, but not use it, could obtain it. The mirror tests motive. It doesn't just reflect desire, it judges it. Harry sees himself placing the stone into his pocket, and when he checks, it's there. Innocence, selflessness, and courage have passed the test. Reflection, here, reveals not what you wish, but who you are. And who we are is also what we fear. When Lupin teaches Harry the boggart lesson, the creature becomes a mirror too. It takes the shape of our deepest fear and returns it to us unfiltered. For Harry, it's a Dementor. For Neville, it's Snape. For Lupin, it's the moon. A boggart is a funhouse mirror of the soul. Rowling plays with this. Our fears and desires, once revealed, shape us. Mirrors do not lie, but they rarely show the full picture. At Grimmauld Place, the Black family tapestry hangs like a dark mirror of bloodlines. Sirius's name is burned out, a reflection of rebellion. The entire house is filled with reflective surfaces that accuse, remind, judge. Creatures' mutterings, the portrait of Mrs. Black, the cursed silver, everything echoes the past, each item a reflection of lost legacy and rot. The mirrors in that house don't show faces, they show burdens. Sirius, caught in this house, becomes a ghost long before he dies. Even in Deathly Hallows the metaphor persists. The resurrection stone works like a mirror in reverse. It doesn't show reflections but apparitions, echoes of the dead. James, Lily, Sirius, Remus. They appear not to guide Harry but to remind him who he is and what he's willing to sacrifice. They are reflections of love, loss, and strength. "We are part of you," they say. In the moment before death, Harry is surrounded by the reflection of everyone he lost, and yet it gives him courage, not sorrow. Rowling's mirrors no longer hurt, they now protect. Dolores Umbridge, on the other hand, avoids reflection entirely. Her world is built on denial and suppression. She decorates her office with plates showing kittens but not mirrors. She silences dissent, punishes truth, and surrounds herself with illusions of order. The absence of reflection in her environment reveals her fear. Mirrors would show her cruelty. Mirrors would show her what she's become. Snape's story is perhaps the most devastating reflection of all. For years, Harry sees him through a singular lens: enemy, traitor, killer. But through the pensive, the final mirror of memory, Harry sees the truth. "Always," says Snape, and in that word, Harry sees not hatred, but love. The boy who lived has misjudged the man who saved him. Reflection, here, shatters expectation. It exposes the cost of silence and the weight of sacrifice. Rowling doesn't offer redemption easily, it must be earned through truth. In the room of requirement, where desires shape reality, the very space becomes a mirror. It provides what the heart needs most. For Dumbledore's army, it offers training space. For Malfoy, it hides his secret task. For Harry, it offers a sanctuary. Yet in the Battle of Hogwarts, it becomes a trap, filled with fire and collapse. The room mirrors intent, whether pure or selfish, and like any mirror, it can break. In the Forbidden Forest, the climax of Harry's journey arrives. He walks to Voldemort, ready to die, with the snitch in hand and the resurrection stone within. There is no literal mirror here, but symbolically the moment is soaked in reflection. Harry reflects on who he is, who he loves, and what he stands for. Death itself becomes a mirror, reflecting not an end, but the ultimate choice. "Do not pity the dead, Harry," Dumbledore tells him later. "Pity the living, and above all those who live without love." Finally, when Harry breaks the Elder Wand and throws it away, he makes his last reflection. He looks not into glass but into himself. Power, once so alluring, is now a burden he rejects. It's the opposite of Erised. No longer driven by desire, Harry is shaped by knowledge. He no longer needs a mirror to understand himself. That journey is complete. The magic of Rowling's mirrors lies in their layering. They do not simply reflect, they reveal, challenge, and demand. They are traps and trials, thresholds and truths. Through them, we see a boy grow into a man, not by what he sees, but by what he learns from those visions. The mirrors don't change, but Harry does. And perhaps that is the deepest magic of all. Number 19, McGonagall's Dance, A Moment Before Darkness. Of all the quiet, easily forgotten scenes in the Harry Potter series, few carry as much weight as the one buried in the pages of Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, where Professor Albus Dumbledore, moments before the darkest hours, does something unexpected. He invites Professor Minerva McGonagall to dance. At first glance, it's a whimsical, fleeting gesture, even bordering on comic relief. Yet behind the brief exchange lies something far more poignant. This small moment, or this passing suggestion of a dance, is loaded with symbolic gravity, a rare window into Dumbledore's psyche, and a carefully planted clue by J.K. Rowling. It's a masterstroke of subtlety, a detail that blurs the line between mortality and magic, humanizes legendary figures, and foreshadows the heartbreak that is about to unfold. The scene itself is almost too light to notice. It takes place shortly after the battle plans begin to form, just before Dumbledore departs with Harry to the cave where the Horcrux hunt will end in tragedy. The castle is on alert, teachers are being positioned, and a sense of urgency permeates the halls of Hogwarts. In the middle of this tension, Dumbledore, in a moment that seems out of place, turns to McGonagall and quips about dancing. The book reads, "Come on, Minerva, let's go and prepare the castle. Perhaps we ought to have a dance, you and I, to lighten the mood." McGonagall, stern as ever, declines the offer, brushing it aside with her usual propriety. But that single sentence from Dumbledore is not mere jest. It's a flare fired into the darkness, his final attempt to bring levity into a world that's about to fracture. Dumbledore, at this point in the story, is not a carefree man. He is a dying man. The curse from the ring Horcrux is already ravaging his body. His remaining time is measured not in years or months, but in days, maybe hours. He knows this. He has made peace with his fate. What he has not abandoned, however, is his unyielding commitment to those he loves and protects. The dance is a deeply human act, a reminder that even in the face of impending death, there is room for beauty, laughter, and connection. The great wizard, the headmaster feared by many and revered by all, reaches across to a colleague not with spells or strategy, but with an invitation to momentary joy. Minerva McGonagall, who herself is a paragon of discipline and restraint, is the perfect counterpart in this gesture. Her refusal to dance is characteristic, but it also anchors the moment in its irony. She declines, not because she lacks feeling, but because she, too, senses the gravity in the air. Her answer is not rejection. It is recognition. And in that unspoken exchange between them lies a world of shared history, loyalty, and impending loss. Their bond is ancient and woven into the very stone of Hogwarts. This dance that never was is paradoxically more powerful than if they had actually waltzed through the halls. It is a ghost of joy, a shadow of what humanity clings to before it's swallowed by sorrow. Rowling's decision to include this moment is not accidental. It echoes the recurring theme in her writing, that love and warmth are the strongest forms of magic, even stronger than the spells that fill her world. The suggestion to dance is not just comic relief before the storm, it is a whisper of life in the presence of death. Dumbledore, who has spent his entire life constructing strategies, playing the long game and wielding immense power, chooses in that moment to be simply human. It is a detail so intimate and out of place that its very peculiarity calls attention to itself, daring the reader to ask, why now? This scene, in hindsight, serves as a prelude to the events that will unfold atop the astronomy tower. Minutes after this moment, Dumbledore will leave the castle with Harry. Hours later, he will fall to his death, murdered not by an enemy, but by a plan he himself orchestrated. There is something unbearably tragic in knowing that his last real words to appear, his last emotional gesture, was an invitation to dance. It speaks to a man aware of time's cruelty, desperate to hold on to the fragments of joy that still remain. The idea of dance, particularly in literature, often serves as a metaphor for life's fleeting pleasures. A dance is temporary, full of rhythm and closeness, but ultimately ends. In this light, Dumbledore's offer takes on deeper meaning. He is offering McGonagall and himself a final participation in the movement of life before the music stops. The impending silence of his death is already resonating through him, and like a musician who knows the final note has already been played, he savors the echoes. The dance he proposes is not about levity. It is about defiance. It is about choosing grace in the face of the abyss. Rowling is no stranger to symbolic economy. Her writing is peppered with these quiet, potent moments, ones that reveal more than pages of exposition ever could. The Half-Blood Prince, as a book, is filled with such ghostly echoes. From the moment Dumbledore visits the Dursleys in the opening chapter to the terrible fate he meets at the end, he carries the aura of someone wrapping up unfinished business. His decisions are more sentimental, his words more personal, his wisdom now tinged with finality. The dance scene is a microcosm of this twilight, his acknowledgement that even amidst strategy and war, the soul needs warmth. There's also something striking about the choice of partner. Dumbledore does not joke with Slughorn or Flitwick or even Hagrid. He chooses McGonagall, his most loyal and trusted second-in-command. She has stood beside him through every battle, every political crisis, every act of resistance against Umbridge and the Ministry. She has followed his lead without question, even when the future was uncertain. This unrequested dance is, in many ways, a thank you. It is a farewell not laced in words but in gesture. Dumbledore, ever the chess player, knew that McGonagall would soon be left to lead in his place. This brief moment was his way of passing the torch, not through power or titles, but through shared humanity. To understand the scene fully is to grasp Rowling's larger philosophy. Magic, in her world, is never about the spell work alone. The real magic is in choice, in compassion, in the unassuming acts that define who people are. Dumbledore's strength was never just in his dueling or his knowledge of ancient magic. It was in his capacity to love, to forgive, to see people for who they truly were. The offer to dance is not powerful because of who makes it. It is powerful because of what it represents, a final embrace of life before surrendering to death. In literature, some of the most heartbreaking moments are those that contain no tragedy on the surface. The simplicity of a smile, a farewell glance, or in this case, a dance offer, can carry more weight than any battlefield. This is the genius of Rowling's construction. The dance is not just between Dumbledore and McGonagall, it is a symbolic dance between light and darkness, between the past and the future, between the illusion of control and the inevitability of fate. The castle around them remains unaware of what is coming, but in that hallway between two old friends, the future is already mourning itself. There's a haunting resonance to the scene when reread after finishing the series. Knowing how it ends, how the war unfolds, how McGonagall will stand at Dumbledore's tomb, how the world will change, recolours the moment entirely. What once seemed a harmless jest becomes a lament in disguise. The great wizard did not dance, but he wanted to, and that, more than anything, reveals the quiet tragedy of his character. A man burdened by guilt, prophecy, and sacrifice, reaching out for a flicker of joy he knows he will never experience. In many ways, the non-dance is the dance. It is the intention, the possibility, the yearning that defines it. The spell was never cast, the music never played, the steps never taken, but the desire was there. And that's what matters. Rowling builds entire emotional structures out of moments like this, subtle gestures that grow in meaning as the story progresses. The reader may miss it at first, but upon reflection, the layers emerge. She doesn't scream the symbolism, she lets it whisper. There is also a contrast here worth noting. Earlier in the same book, Dumbledore takes Harry to Slughorn's Christmas party, where lightness and merriment swirl. That kind of dancing, literal and metaphorical, is part of a younger world. It is full of energy, chaos, flirtation. But the dance Dumbledore proposes to McGonagall is quieter, more mournful. It is the dance of those who have seen too much, who have endured too long, who understand that joy is a fragile thing. Even the location is significant. The offer occurs within the stone halls of Hogwarts, a castle that has seen more joy and tragedy than any other in the magical world. These walls have heard laughter and cries, victories and defeats. To suggest a dance here is to suggest that life continues, even as darkness encroaches. It is a tribute to the idea that Hogwarts itself is a living symbol of resistance, of love, of home, and in that home, even a dying man can imagine a final moment of warmth. The quiet comedy of the line should not distract from its depth. Dumbledore's humour was often a mask, a means to shield others from his pain, to reassure them when he himself was drowning. His joke about dancing is not flippant. It is tender and a little sad. It is the way people who know they are leaving try to make others smile, so the farewell will sting a little less. He did not want McGonagall to worry. He wanted her to remember that even in goodbye, there can be grace. When readers revisit the scene, it should not be with laughter but with awe. J.K. Rowling hid a farewell letter inside a joke, a final bow inside a throwaway line. Dumbledore did not fight his death. He prepared for it, but he also honored life on his way out. And in the smallest gesture, one never accepted, never completed, he said everything he needed to say. Number 20. Luna Lovegood. The prophet no one listens to. Of all the characters who wander the shadowed corridors of Hogwarts, Luna Lovegood may be the most misunderstood. Introduced in Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, Luna is immediately cast as strange, with her dreamy voice, radish earrings, and belief in creatures most wizards consider mythical. She is the kind of character many readers and students alike smile at indulgently, sometimes even unkindly. But within her oddities, J.K. Rowling hides something extraordinary. Luna is a prophet, not in the traditional crystal ball gazing sense, but in a deeper, more poetic way. She speaks truth that others overlook, truth often masked by laughter or dismissed as nonsense. And perhaps that is Rowling's greatest hidden message. In the whirlwind of heroics and wars, it is the quiet voice of the eccentric girl that often reveals what matters most. There's a reason Luna's first real moment in the story comes just after Harry sees Thestrals, the skeletal winged horses invisible to those who haven't witnessed death. Luna, calmly feeding a Thestral, is the first person who helps Harry name and understand what he's seen. "You're not going mad or anything. I can see them too," she says. That moment is not just a quirky introduction, it's a declaration. Luna exists in the liminal space between life and death, truth and illusion. She sees what others cannot, quite literally. From this first encounter, Rowling positions her as someone attuned to deeper realities, someone who knows death intimately and therefore recognizes truth even when cloaked in shadows. Her connection with death continues through the series, and with it, her uncanny ability to sense outcomes before they manifest. During Order of the Phoenix, when Harry believes he is rescuing Sirius from the Department of Mysteries, Luna joins the mission. In the chaos that follows, it is Sirius who falls beyond the veil, a death foreshadowed subtly by Luna's earlier conversation about Thestrals. Harry doesn't yet realize the warning embedded in her presence. Luna's very being, her comfort with the unseen, her peace with death, is the unheeded bell tolling for Sirius. The world shrugs her off, but Luna sees the arc of fate. Unlike many of Harry's friends, Luna never demands that he be cheerful or brave when he cannot. After Sirius's death, while others are awkward or silent, Luna offers the kindest comfort. "I'm sorry about your godfather, Harry," she says quietly. And when Harry is startled, expecting perhaps a platitude or suggestion to move on, Luna simply continues, "That's all right. He's just behind the veil, isn't he?" In that moment, Luna isn't just being kind. She's revealing a belief system far older than Hogwarts, one where death isn't final, where the unseen matters more than the seen. Luna grieves with grace, with depth. She speaks of death not with fear, but with understanding. Who else in the series does that? Even before this moment, Luna demonstrates a prophetic intuition that goes ignored. Throughout Order of the Phoenix, she makes comments that, on the surface, seem bizarre, but viewed in hindsight, they hint at deeper truths. She talks of conspiracies at the Ministry long before the Daily Prophet acknowledges Voldemort's return. She senses the alienation Harry feels, not through deduction, but through emotional resonance. When Hermione laughs at her, calling her beliefs absurd, Rowling is showing us something important. Truth sometimes arrives dressed in tattered robes and eccentric words, and we must choose whether to laugh or to listen. Perhaps the most overlooked moment of Luna's insight comes during Dumbledore's army meetings. While others are focused on technique and magic, Luna watches people. She sees fear in Neville, uncertainty in Ginny, exhaustion in Harry. She's the only one who never tries to change anyone. Her presence is a quiet prophecy. The war will not only be about spells, but about resilience, about spirit, about being seen. Luna sees. During the Battle of the Department of Mysteries, when chaos erupts and everything falls apart, Luna fights bravely. Not loudly, but with a steadiness that speaks volumes. Afterward, while others are shaken, Luna remains composed. That doesn't mean she isn't hurt, but she carries her wounds differently. In this, too, there is prophecy, a vision of how war scars the soul, and how some people carry grief not through rage, but through acceptance. Luna's calm is not ignorance, it is ancient wisdom, inherited from the grief she already knows. The sixth book, Half-Blood Prince, gives us another hidden thread. Harry, increasingly isolated, finds comfort not in Ron or Hermione, but in Luna. She accompanies him to Slughorn's party. On the surface, it's a quirky moment. The hero, taking the school eccentric to a formal event, but it's more than that. Harry trusts her. In a castle full of whispers and half-truths, Luna is the one person who never lies. Rowling doesn't spell it out, but the subtext is loud. In times of darkness, trust the voice untainted by ambition. Even in humour, Luna delivers unexpected clarity. When she comments on Nargles or Raxburts, readers might laugh, but often these creatures represent real things. Unseen anxieties, irrational fears, the invisible forces that cloud judgment. Luna's belief in them becomes metaphor. Just as she sees Thestrals, she sees what others pretend doesn't exist. Nargles aren't pests, they're projections. Raxburts aren't fiction, they're the fog of doubt. Luna gives language to emotions no one else dares name. In Deathly Hallows, Luna's role expands. Trapped in Malfoy Manor with Harry, Ron, and others, she is a pillar of quiet strength. In the dungeon, she soothes Mr. Ollivander. She never panics. She radiates peace in the darkest place. It is Luna who guides others emotionally, just as surely as Hermione guides them logically. When they escape, her calm remains. She has faced death again, and survived it with her spirit intact. When Harry visits her home, he finds it decorated not just with colour, but with reverence. Her father has painted portraits of the people Luna calls friends. It's an overwhelming gesture of loyalty and love. In Luna's absence, her father clings to her worldview. He may betray them later out of fear, but that mural and that act of memory is prophecy too. It says, Luna matters. Luna touches lives. At Dobby's grave, when Harry begins to shift from boy to man, it is Luna who helps. She suggests the words for the headstone. Here lies Dobby, a free elf. This isn't just a kindness. It's another moment where Luna sees what others don't. Dignity in the smallest lives, heroism in unlikely places. She doesn't fight for attention or glory. Her truth comes in the form of stillness and clarity. She honors the dead with words that echo through the series' deepest themes. In the final battle, Luna's bravery shines. She leads Harry to the Ravenclaw common room and helps him confront the Grey Lady, another spirit bound by truth and memory. Luna speaks to the ghost not as a student, but as an equal. She coaxes the truth from her not by force, but by gentleness. It is perhaps the clearest moment of Luna's gift, the ability to draw truth from the hidden corners of pain. She doesn't need a prophecy orb. She is the prophecy. A girl who believes in unseen things, who sees what others won't admit, who honors pain without being destroyed by it. That's more powerful than Trelawney's ramblings or the Centaur's riddles. Rowling, masterfully, never gives Luna a formal title. No seer, no chosen one. She leaves it to readers to realize that the most important truths are the ones whispered, not shouted. Luna also represents the type of wisdom the wizarding world rejects. She is not part of any institution. She isn't on the front page. The ministry wouldn't recognize her as a source, but time and again she is right. Her belief in Harry never wavers. Her acceptance of others is never conditional. She tells Neville he's brave before he proves it. She tells Harry he's not alone when he feels most isolated. Her words don't come from prophecy books but from clarity of heart. Even after Voldemort's fall, the legacy of Luna remains potent. She becomes a naturalist, continuing to seek the unseen. But this time, with the world more willing to listen, the girl who was once mocked for her beliefs becomes the one who understands magic in its purest form. And perhaps that's Rowling's final whisper to the reader. Luna was never mad, she was always ahead of us, a prophet not of doom, but of emotional truth. Looking back, one sees how Luna's words pierce the fog of the plot. Things we lose have a way of coming back to us in the end, if not always in the way we expect. It sounds simple, but it carries the weight of loss, of faith, of the long game of healing. Luna doesn't need to convince anyone, she simply knows, and in that knowing she becomes the mirror for Harry's own journey, from confusion to acceptance, from grief to peace. Her journey is quiet, but no less profound. She doesn't win duels or destroy Horcruxes, but she wins hearts. She unearths meaning in moments others deem meaningless. Her very presence in the books is a clue that sometimes the greatest prophets are dismissed as fools. That truth doesn't wear a crown, it wears radishes and corks. Rowling invites us to reread Luna's lines not as comic relief, but as gospel. Every laugh at her expense is a lesson, every ignored warning a reminder. Luna is the one who always tells the truth, not because she knows the future, but because she sees the present more clearly than anyone else. In a world that often demands conformity, Luna's wildness is salvation. Her truths don't roar, they hum gently in the background, waiting to be heard. And when Harry finally listens, truly listens, he doesn't just understand her, he understands himself. Because Luna doesn't just predict events, she reveals character. She is perhaps Rowling's purest embodiment of wisdom, unshaken by fashion, unfazed by ridicule, and wholly devoted to what matters. Through Luna, Rowling reminds us that the truth doesn't always come from the center of the stage. Sometimes it drifts in barefoot and serene, speaking of invisible horses and lost shoes, and we must choose whether to ignore it or follow it beyond the veil. Number 21, The Children's Names, Rowling's final gift. There's a moment at the very end of the Harry Potter series that stirred an unexpected wave of resistance from fans. It is not a duel, nor a confession, nor even a death. It is a name, or rather, 3 names. James Sirius, Albus Severus, Lily Luna, children of Harry Potter. To some, the names seemed predictable, even forced, a neat bow to wrap a sprawling epic. But those names are not bows, they are tombstones turned into seeds. And in them, J.K. Rowling embedded one of the most profound messages in the entire series, that remembrance is a defiance of oblivion, and that healing comes from naming the ghosts we refuse to forget. Harry Potter was a boy defined by loss. He never knew his parents beyond a mirror's illusion. He clutched to memories like lifelines, a letter in his mother's hand, a stag in the forest, a photograph that moved but could not speak. Throughout the series, Rowling carefully constructed a world where death was omnipresent but not final. Ghosts lingered, portraits whispered, the dead taught the living. In this world, names mattered, and so in that brief moment on platform 9 3/4, when Harry sent his son off to Hogwarts, the names he chose were not casual dedications, they were resurrections. James Sirius Potter bears 2 names carved out of tragedy. James Potter, Harry's father, and Sirius Black, his godfather, were both murdered, both by Voldemort's forces, both for love and loyalty. James was the brave and arrogant boy who became a father too soon, a man who died to shield his son. Sirius was the wild and broken man who spent more time in Azkaban than he did with his godson, yet loved Harry fiercely. When Harry names his firstborn James Sirius, he is not just memorializing 2 men, he is building a bridge between the life he lost and the life he now lives. He gives his son a heritage of defiance and devotion. That name is not heavy, it is a gift of fire. Albus Severus Potter's name is the most complex and the most controversial. Albus Dumbledore and Severus Snape were men of secrets, shame, and sacrifice. Dumbledore, who guided Harry, yet kept him in the dark. Snape, who tormented him but protected him all the same. To name a child after both was jarring to many readers. But Rowling was not offering comfort. She was offering resolution. She was showing that forgiveness is a form of courage. "You were named for 2 headmasters of Hogwarts," Harry tells his son in the epilogue. "One of them was a Slytherin, and he was probably the bravest man I ever knew." This sentence is not just Harry's, it is Rowling's final thesis. By naming his second son Albus Severus, Harry acknowledges contradiction. He honors light and shadow together. Dumbledore, the brilliant manipulator who wore his burdens like phoenix feathers. Snape, the bitter spy who chose love over pride. In giving their names to a child, Harry isn't saying these men were perfect. He's saying they were real. They mattered. They fought and fell and rose again. They shaped him. And he wants his son to carry not their burden but their legacy. Lily Luna Potter carries 2 softer, subtler names. Lily, of course, is Harry's mother, the heart of his earliest loss, the woman whose love etched itself into his very skin. Luna Lovegood, on the other hand, is very much alive. She is the dreamy girl who saw Thestrals, believed in the impossible, and treated Harry not as a chosen one, but as a fellow human being. Naming his daughter after these 2 women ties together the themes of maternal love and eccentric wisdom. It's not a name for fame or power. It's a name for hope. The choice to name a child after the dead is not a new literary device nor an uncommon practice, but in Rowling's hands it becomes an act of narrative resistance. Throughout the series, Voldemort is defined by his obsession with death and his fear of being forgotten. He splits his soul to preserve himself, erases his past, renames himself to obliterate Tom Riddle. Harry, in contrast, knits his life around memory. He brings back the lost, even if only in name. While Voldemort erases, Harry remembers. This is the final opposition. Not wands, not spells, names. Rowling's genius lies in the way these names are not just references. They are revelations. They show who Harry has become. A man who has seen war, lost nearly everyone he loved, and yet chooses to live not in anger, but in remembrance. He could have named his children anything. He could have turned away from the pain of the past, but he chose to carry it forward, to make it part of the future. This is not sentimentality, this is survival. In Deathly Hallows, the resurrection stone scene in the forest provides an eerie foreshadowing of this theme. As Harry walks to what he believes is his death, he summons the shades of James, Lily, Sirius, and Remus. They cannot touch him, but they walk with him. They speak to him. They give him the strength to keep going. This moment is pure emotional alchemy, the dead empowering the living. And so when Harry later names his children, he is doing the same thing. He is bringing them into the journey, giving them voice. Rowling wrote, "The scar had not pained Harry for 19 years. All was well." Many dismissed this line as too tidy, too simple for such a turbulent story. But they misunderstood its power. That line is not about forgetting, it's about healing. And healing doesn't mean the absence of scars. It means learning to live with them. Naming a child after someone you lost is not about grief. It's about reconciliation. It is a quiet form of victory. Harry never had a family in the traditional sense. The Dursleys gave him shelter, but never love. The Weasleys gave him warmth, but it wasn't the same as blood. And yet, in choosing the names he did, Harry builds his own version of a family tree, not one rooted in biology, but in sacrifice and memory. He adopts the men who raised him in battle. He restores dignity to those the world misunderstood. He says to them, "Even in death, you matter." When Harry names a child after Snape, it is not because Snape was kind to him. He wasn't. It's because Harry learned the full truth. He saw the memory. "Always," Snape had said, and in that word, the entirety of Snape's transformation was sealed. A man who began with bitterness, driven by guilt, became a protector in the shadows. Harry's choice of name is not forgiveness alone. It is gratitude, quiet and profound. In mythology and literature, naming holds deep power. To name something is to acknowledge it. In Rowling's magical world, this becomes literal. Voldemort's name becomes taboo. Speaking it is an act of rebellion. So too is naming a child after the fallen. It says, "I will not let you vanish. You will walk in classrooms again. You will board the Hogwarts Express. You will live." Harry's names are also deeply political. He bridges houses, Gryffindor and Slytherin. He honors a man scorned by the Order and feared by many. He brings nuance where once there was division. "Help will always be given at Hogwarts to those who ask for it," Dumbledore once said. In choosing these names, Harry is extending that help to the future. Even Lily Luna, whose name is the gentlest of all, carries immense weight. Lily Evans, who died for love. Luna Lovegood, who lived by faith. Together they form a legacy of emotional strength, one grounded in reality, the other in belief. Naming a daughter after them is an offering, not to greatness, but to kindness. There's an old wizarding saying, "Those who remember are never truly gone." Rowling doesn't spell this out, but she lives it. The entire epilogue is built on this truth. There is no grand revelation, no hidden prophecy, just names. But those names are spells in themselves. They bring the dead into sunlight. They write them into the next generation. In the end, Rowling didn't leave us with a twist or a riddle. She left us with a family, a boy who became a man who named his children not to impress the world, but to honor the ones who saved it. Each name is a tombstone turned cradle, a memory turned promise. This, perhaps, is Rowling's final gift. Not the defeat of evil, not the survival of the hero, but the reminder that we carry the past with us, in stories, in scars, and in names. And in doing so, we become more than survivors. We become storytellers. We become healers. And so when Harry Potter stands on the platform and says to his nervous son, Albus Severus, "You were named after 2 headmasters of Hogwarts," he's not just offering comfort. He's passing the torch. He's teaching his child and us that the past is not a weight, but a guide, that those who died do not vanish. They watch, they whisper, and through names they return. The story ends not with fireworks, but with remembrance, not with triumph, but with peace. And in that peace we understand at last what Rowling was always trying to say. All was well, not because nothing was lost, but because nothing was forgotten. Number 22, Ron's fear of spiders. Of all the phobias that might emerge in the world of Harry Potter, Ron Weasley's irrational fear of spiders has remained one of the most consistent character traits throughout the series. It's easy to laugh at, a moment of comic relief, tucked within the darker, more serious threads of the narrative. But upon closer inspection, this fear, and the way J.K. Rowling handles it, becomes a profound and intentional thread that marks Ron's journey from an insecure boy to a man of quiet courage. It begins innocently, but it ends in symbolism that defines the emotional climax of Ron's character development in a flash of steel as he strikes down not just a monstrous spider, but the shadow of his own childhood dread. The fear is first hinted at in Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. When the trio navigates the Forbidden Forest for detention, Ron is immediately nervous about what creatures lurk in the shadows. Later, during their classes and explorations, it's clear that spiders give him an unusual amount of anxiety. But it is in Chamber of Secrets that this fear erupts fully into the narrative. Forced to follow the trail of spiders into the forest, Ron and Harry encounter Aragog, an ancient acromantula whose very size and voice evoke horror. Ron is petrified, not in the magical sense, but paralyzed by fear. Rowling uses the encounter not only to drive the plot forward, but to carve a deep impression of Ron's limitations. It's not a lack of loyalty that holds him back. It's the deeply human reality of fear. In that moment in the forest, Rowling gives us something more than a scary monster. We see Ron sweat, pale, shake, and barely hold himself together. "Follow the spiders," Ron says afterwards, his voice brittle with disbelief. Why couldn't it be follow the butterflies? His sarcasm masks something deeper. Ron isn't a coward, but he's painfully aware of his limits. This moment captures an essential idea Rowling revisits throughout the series. Bravery is not the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. And for Ron, spiders are not just eight-legged creatures. They are walking emblems of his most visceral childhood terror. In many ways, Ron's fear of spiders functions like Harry's scar. It's ever-present, inconvenient, and reveals itself at key moments. Yet unlike Harry's lightning bolt, a symbol bestowed upon him through no fault of his own, Ron's fear is internal, illogical, and born in the everyday. That makes it all the more relatable. We've all been afraid of things we couldn't explain. And so while the books give us dragons, Death Eaters, and Dark Lords, Ron's nemesis is far smaller but just as potent. The genius of Rowling's writing is that she doesn't dismiss this fear, she doesn't resolve it with a potion or a spell. She lets it fester until Ron must confront it, and she saves that moment for the most symbolically loaded scene possible. By the time we reach Deathly Hallows, Ron has grown in ways that are subtle and often overlooked. He is still insecure, still overshadowed by his brothers and best friend, but the reader knows, or we have watched, as he has defended Hermione, stood by Harry, and sacrificed safety for what is right. And then comes the destruction of the Locket Horcrux. It's a pivotal scene. In a dark forest clearing, Ron returns after abandoning his friends. A moment of failure, regret, and longing. The sword of Gryffindor lies before him, and he must use it to destroy the locket. But Rowling doesn't make this easy. The Horcrux, sensing his deepest fears, projects hallucinations meant to break him. Harry and Hermione kissing, mocking him, telling him he's nothing. But before Ron can strike, something else appears. A giant spider, one that emerges from the depths of the locket's illusions. It's no coincidence. The locket doesn't just tease him about romantic jealousy, it summons the one fear he never conquered. It's as if the Horcrux, with cruel precision, targets the vulnerable, forgotten child within him. And then a voice hissed, a voice of horrible familiarity. "I have seen your heart, and it is mine." It is Voldemort speaking through the locket, using every ounce of psychological torment he can muster. And yet, Ron lifts the sword. He doesn't run, he doesn't scream. The boy who once trembled before Aragog now stands firm before the worst hallucination of his fear. The symbolism is almost poetic. By destroying the locket, he isn't just destroying a piece of Voldemort's soul. He's destroying his own insecurity, his jealousy, and yes, his childhood fear of spiders. In one stroke, he sheds his old self. This act is not about courage in battle, it's about the quiet bravery of personal growth. What's striking is that Rowling never pauses to point this out directly. She doesn't underline the symbolism with a flourish, she lets the reader feel it, see it. And those who remember Aragog, who recall the shaking hands and stammering voice of second-year Ron, understand just how far this character has come. The connection is emotional, not overt. This is Rowling at her most masterful, being planting a seed in Book 2, letting it grow in shadow, and letting it bloom in fire and steel at the end. Ron's journey is often compared unfavourably to Harry's or Hermione's. He isn't the chosen one, nor the genius, but what he represents is something crucial to the heart of the series, the everyday person who becomes heroic, not through destiny, not through brilliance, but through choice, through perseverance, through moments like these where he steps up not because he's fearless, but because he's ready to stop being ruled by fear. It also recontextualizes earlier scenes, when Ron gets his hand bitten by Norbert the dragon, when he's knocked unconscious in the chess match during their first year, when he's dragged screaming through the forest by spiders. These aren't just obstacles, they are chapters in the quiet war he's been fighting within himself. His breaking point when he leaves Harry and Hermione during their Horcrux hunt comes from this same well of inadequacy. And his return, and culminating in the spider illusion, marks the moment he stops being a boy, terrified of being less than. Consider also that the sword of Gryffindor, the only weapon that can destroy Horcruxes, presents itself only to those who prove themselves true Gryffindors. And Ron, not Harry, not Hermione, is the one to pull it from the lake. He earns it, not with muscle or magic, but with choice. A choice to return, to face what he fears most, and to believe in his own worth. It's a quiet scene, but thunderous in its emotional impact. The destruction of the locket is often remembered for the kiss that follows, Ron and Hermione finally breaking through years of tension. But the true emotional core of that scene lies not in romance, but in Ron's transformation. The sword swings not just at a Horcrux, but at the heart of a child's deepest fear. And the boy who once could not look at a spider now swings a blade through its illusion without flinching. It is moments like this that remind readers why Rowling's world feels so rich, not because of spells or creatures, but because the characters evolve in meaningful, believable ways. Ron's fear of spiders isn't just a joke, it's a roadmap, a narrative breadcrumb trail that leads us, slowly but surely, to this moment of catharsis. Rowling never abandons the detail. She lets it sit, lets it fester, and then redeems it with brilliance. Even the name of Aragog becomes weighted. Once a monster that nearly ended Ron's life, Aragog becomes, in a sense, the ghost that Ron banishes. A memory transfigured, a symbol slain. That final confrontation, even in illusion, becomes a purification, a shedding of skin. Ron Weasley, the boy who screamed in the forest, becomes Ron Weasley, the man who stands alone in another forest, sword in hand, heart exposed, and wins. In this, Rowling teaches us something profound, that trauma doesn't vanish with age. It lingers, it waits. But it can be confronted, it can be beaten, through will, through love, through the courage to stand when it's easier to fall. And so, Ron becomes not just a friend to the hero, he becomes a hero in his own right. This detail, this small, sneaky fear, is one of Rowling's greatest triumphs in character construction. It's storytelling at its finest. Sow early, grow quietly, reap explosively. It is why readers feel such catharsis in that scene, because we've known the fear, we've seen the journey, and we know what it means to stand before your nightmare and decide, finally, that it has no more power over you. The spider, in the end, is not Ron's enemy. It is his shadow. And the moment he strikes it down, he proves that he has stepped out of it. That is not just a good narrative. It's a great one. And it is a detail that elevates the series from entertaining to unforgettable. Number 23. The symbolism of number 7. The magic of J.K. Rowling's world is not only in wands, spells, or enchanted castles, but in the patterns hidden deep within her storytelling. Among the most powerful and subtle of these patterns is the recurring presence of the number 7, a number not only ancient in its symbolism, but ingeniously woven through every layer of the Harry Potter saga. From plot construction to character arcs, from artifacts to magical systems, the number 7 pulses through the series like a steady heartbeat, felt more than seen. Rowling did not just write 7 books. She cast a spell in 7 parts. 7 years at Hogwarts, that's the obvious one. Harry's magical education is split into 7 distinct school years, each book representing a year, each year bringing him closer to destiny. But beyond serving as an academic timeline, the 7 years are a symbolic pilgrimage, a journey through innocence, loss, temptation, power, truth, sacrifice, and ultimately, mastery. In traditional lore, 7 is the number of completeness, and Harry's time at Hogwarts isn't just an education in charms and potions. It is his transformation from boy to hero. Rowling doesn't stop with the academic structure. She embeds the number into the architecture of magic itself. In the Sorcerer's Stone, Harry, Ron, and Hermione must pass through 7 magical obstacles to reach the Philosopher's Stone. Fluffy, the 3-headed dog, Devil's Snare, the Flying Key, the life-sized wizard's chessboard, the troll, the potion riddle, and the mirror of Erised. Each challenge mirrors an aspect of their strengths: bravery, logic, intelligence, friendship, and the final one, the mirror, reveals Harry's heart. The number is not random. It's a coded sequence of trials, 7 steps toward understanding not just magic, but himself. Even the most feared magic in the series, the act of splitting one's soul, submits to the same rhythm. Voldemort creates 6 Horcruxes, intending his own body to be the 7th piece. 7 seems to be the most powerfully magical number, Dumbledore muses in Half-Blood Prince, and Voldemort, ever the seeker of forbidden knowledge, obeys the ancient whisper of numerology. But there's a twist. Voldemort's plan to split his soul into 7 fails because he accidentally makes an 8th. Harry himself becomes an unintentional Horcrux. The plan to reach magical supremacy through the number 7 backfires, and that failure echoes the deeper truth of the books. Magic used without love, without humility, turns against the wielder. Quidditch, the most beloved sport in the wizarding world, also bows to the number. Each team fields 7 players, 3 chasers, 2 beaters, 1 keeper, 1 seeker. The balance is not just tactical but symbolic. The seeker, Harry's role, is the 7th, the one apart, the one whose goal isn't points but the snitch, the game's conclusion. The seeker is often seen as the outsider, much like Harry, whose role in the larger war is not to fight battles endlessly, but to seek the ending, the resolution, the endgame. The snitch, small and golden, always elusive, mirrors the Horcruxes. The seeker's path is the path of fate. There are 7 Weasley children: Bill, Charlie, Percy, Fred, George, Ron, and Ginny. This perfect family unit offers a stark contrast to Voldemort's fractured soul. The Weasleys, poor but full of love, represent harmony, and it is no coincidence that they appear again and again as a moral counterweight to the chaos outside. Ginny, the youngest, the 7th child, becomes Harry's partner. A balance restored through love, just as Voldemort's imbalance arises from hate. Rowling subtly reinforces the number's mystical properties through other structures. There are 7 secret passages leading from Hogwarts to Hogsmeade, 7 locks on Mad-Eye Moody's trunk, 7 registered animagi in the 20th century. When Harry's protection from the Dursleys ends, 7 Harrys are created to transport him safely, each with a corresponding protector, symbolizing the layers of defense, loyalty, and sacrifice that guard him. In Deathly Hallows, the final book, the 7th, the symmetry tightens. There are 7 parts of Voldemort's soul to destroy. There are 7 Potters in the sky during the Battle of the 7 Potters. 7 months pass from their escape to the Battle of Hogwarts. 7 years have passed since Harry first boarded the Hogwarts Express. The final battle doesn't just mark the end of a war, it fulfills a prophecy born of numerology. This is not coincidence. It is a pattern so carefully designed that even the characters seem to walk through fate itself. 7 is not just a number, it is the rhythm of Rowling's narrative incantation. Just as a composer repeats a musical phrase to give a sense of harmony and return, Rowling uses the number to pull the reader through a loop of completion. Even when readers don't consciously recognize it, they feel the inevitability, the gravity. The number 7 becomes a gravitational force in the story. Take the 7 core members of Dumbledore's army who fight until the very end. Harry, Hermione, Ron, Neville, Luna, Ginny, and Seamus. They are the survivors, the faithful. The number holds. These are not arbitrary characters. They are 7 points in a constellation of resistance, each with a vital role. The number clusters around moments of resolution, of destiny. 7 becomes the silent companion of victory. In Chamber of Secrets, when Harry faces the basilisk, he destroys the first Horcrux, Tom Riddle's diary, not yet knowing what it is. It's the 2nd book in the series, but the first step on the path of 7. That destruction sets into motion a chain of events that will lead to the unraveling of Voldemort's soul. It takes 7 books to undo what Voldemort spent years assembling. The number frames the arc from innocence to knowledge. The prophecy itself, heard in order of the Phoenix, predicts that neither can live while the other survives, but the chosen one must be born as the 7th month dies. Again, July. The 7th month, the chosen birth. Rowling embeds the number in Harry's origin. He is born to fulfill a cycle. He is not just any wizard, he is the one born under the number that controls fate. In ancient numerology, 7 symbolizes inner wisdom, intuition, and truth-seeking. Rowling, a scholar of myth and literature, harnesses this meaning fully. She crafts a hero who seeks truth, who walks the path of intuition, often guided not by logic, but by gut feeling, loyalty, love, and moral clarity. Harry's choices, to spare Peter Pettigrew, to bury Dobby without magic, to walk willingly into the forest to die, these are not strategic moves. They are soul choices, and soul in Rowling's magic matters more than power. In The Half-Blood Prince, Dumbledore says, "You are the true master of death, because the true master does not seek to run away from death. He accepts that he must die and understands that there are far, far worse things in the living world than dying." This is Harry's 7th lesson and the final understanding that completes his education. The Horcrux hunt is not just physical, it is spiritual. He must die to defeat death. The 7th sacrifice is himself. Even the Marauder's map obeys the hidden rhythm, created by 4 but later used by 3, Fred, George and Harry, to explore the 7 floors of Hogwarts. Each mischief maker becomes a piece of a magical puzzle whose full image is only revealed in the final book. The map does not lie. Like the number 7, it reveals what is hidden. The Deathly Hallows themselves, the Elder Wand, the Resurrection Stone, the Invisibility Cloak, are 3. But they require a 4th, the one who unites them. That person is Harry, making him the 4th part of a trinity. But he must pass 7 trials before reaching that point. By the time he becomes the Master of Death, he has lost Sirius, Dumbledore, Dobby, Hedwig, Lupin, Tonks, and Fred. 7 souls taken by war. 7 losses that forge the Hallows into meaning. Rowling could have chosen any number of books. A trilogy is common. A 9-part epic, like The Lord of the Rings and its appendages, was possible. But she chose 7. And because she chose it, every layer of the story was tuned to its frequency. From the staircase that shifts 7 times between floors, to the 7 books in Gilderoy Lockhart's ego-driven bibliography, the world itself bends around the number. As readers turn the final page of Deathly Hallows, what they may feel, deep in their chest, without fully realizing it, is closure. It is the quiet click of a puzzle piece fitting perfectly. A story told in 7 strokes, a symphony in 7 movements. Even the epilogue echoes it. 19 years later, 7 times 2 plus 5, the past's echo woven into the future. Nothing is arbitrary. Everything returns. Jo Rowling did not use magic. She built it, brick by narrative brick and mortar made of myth. She constructed a world that feels ancient, inevitable, real. And in the center of it, like a keystone, lies the number 7. It is the symbol that ties prophecy to pain, love to legacy, soul to salvation. Not all readers will see it. Not all readers need to. The spell works regardless, because like the deepest enchantments, it is silent, but always present. Do you remember the Mirror of Erised? The inscription reads, Erised stra eru, oit ube kafru oit onwosi. I show not your face, but your heart's desire. Flip it, and meaning is revealed. The number 7 is much the same, hidden in plain sight, waiting to be seen. A mirror of magic itself, reflecting not just light, but design. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Every time Harry chooses loyalty over ambition, every time Hermione chooses books but then throws one aside, every time Ron returns after leaving, the number hums like background music. It reminds us that stories are not just told, they are structured. They move like spells. And some spells require 7 words, 7 turns, 7 years. So when you next open the books, listen, not with ears, but with the part of you that feels fate. Count the steps, trace the rhythm. 7 is not an accident. It is the truth behind the magic. Number 24, Crookshanks, the Watcher Cat. In Harry Potter and The Prisoner of Azkaban, a seemingly minor addition to the story quietly slips into the background. A flat-faced, irritable and bushy ginger cat named Crookshanks, Hermione Granger purchases him from the magical menagerie without much fanfare. He's described as ugly by Ron and even by the witch in the shop, who says he'd been there for ages because nobody wanted him. But J.K. Rowling rarely introduces a character or creature without purpose. What at first appears to be a small subplot about a pet dispute between friends reveals itself upon closer reading to be one of the most subtly important character developments in the series. Crookshanks is not just a cat, he is half Kneazle, a magical creature known in the wizarding world for its uncanny ability to sense untrustworthy people. He can understand human speech and has an intelligence beyond that of any ordinary feline. This isn't fan theory, it's canon, confirmed by Rowling herself on her website. But what Rowling didn't spell out in obvious terms is how deeply Crookshanks's presence ties into Hermione's own evolution. His introduction marks a crucial turning point in her character arc, one that hints at her growing capacity to sense magic, not just intellectually, but intuitively. In a story built on transformation, Crookshanks is a mirror to Hermione's own metamorphosis. At the beginning of the series, Hermione is rigidly bound to rules and obsessed with textbook knowledge. She's the girl who memorized Hogwarts, a history, who panics over missing class, and who trusts logic and schedules more than instincts. But Crookshanks doesn't function on rules or syllabi. He follows hunches, emotion, and gut feeling. He immediately identifies that Scabbers, Ron's pet rat, is not a rat at all, but a man in disguise, Peter Pettigrew, the betrayer of James and Lily Potter. It's not just that Crookshanks dislikes Scabbers. He stalks him, lunges at him, and treats him as prey. While the other characters remain oblivious, Crookshanks sees the truth, and Hermione, so rational, so rule-abiding, begins to trust him. She believes her cat's behavior over Ron's protests. This subtle shift in trust is the beginning of Hermione stepping out of the theoretical and into the intuitive. The magic of Crookshanks lies in what he represents. He isn't just an intelligent pet, he is a magical barometer, guiding Hermione toward a deeper understanding of herself and the world around her. When she chooses him, she doesn't just adopt a pet, she aligns herself with a form of magic that is instinctive, emotional, and mysterious. That choice reflects an unconscious change in Hermione. She no longer relies solely on what she reads, she starts to feel her way forward. There's a line in Prisoner of Azkaban that resonates far beyond the page. As Ron accuses Crookshanks of attacking Scabbers yet again, Hermione defends her cat with quiet certainty. He's not ordinary, Ron. He knows something. In that moment, Hermione isn't quoting a book. She's not repeating something she read or heard. She's trusting her own sense, her own inner compass. This evolution continues throughout the book. Crookshanks does more than just sense Pettigrew. He actively participates in the unfolding of the truth. When Sirius Black escapes from Azkaban and hides near Hogwarts, it's Crookshanks who meets with him in secret. Not only does the cat recognize Sirius for what he is, not a threat, but a misunderstood man, he becomes his silent accomplice. Crookshanks steals passwords from Neville Longbottom, enabling Sirius to break into Gryffindor Tower. He even leads Harry and Hermione through the Whomping Willow passage to the Shrieking Shack. Rowling never directly explains how Hermione felt about these actions, but we can infer volumes from the choices she makes. She doesn't punish Crookshanks. She doesn't express shock or betrayal. Instead, she stays quiet, contemplative, perhaps because she understands, even if she can't articulate it, that Crookshanks is operating on a level of magic she is just beginning to grasp. This journey culminates in the confrontation at the Shrieking Shack. There, the true nature of Scabbers is revealed, and Crookshanks's behavior is finally justified. But the more profound revelation is that Hermione stood on the edge of knowledge long before the truth came to light. Her cat's instincts were an extension of her own developing intuition. It's important to note that the magical menagerie didn't just sell pets. It was a magical environment filled with enchanted creatures. That Crookshanks had been waiting there for ages is not an accidental detail. Rowling implies that he was waiting for someone who could understand him, someone open to his kind of magic. Hermione, in choosing him, reveals something about herself that hadn't yet fully emerged. She is not just the cleverest witch of her age, she is someone who is beginning to feel the pulse of deeper magic. Interestingly, in later books, Crookshanks fades into the background. He's still around, but his presence becomes less central. This is not a sign of narrative neglect. It is, rather, a testament to what he helped Hermione achieve. Once she began trusting her instincts, Crookshanks's role as her magical guide became less necessary. She had absorbed the lesson. There's a literary elegance to this. In storytelling, a mentor figure often disappears when the student is ready. Crookshanks is a silent mentor, ushering Hermione from the world of memorized spells and rigid rule-following into a more intuitive, human, and emotionally grounded magic. The connection between Kneazles and intuition is well documented in wizarding lore. According to Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, a Kneazle has an uncanny ability to detect suspicious or untrustworthy people. Crookshanks, being half Kneazle, embodies this talent fully, but more than that, he amplifies it in Hermione. His presence makes her question things she might otherwise have ignored. Scabbers' odd behavior, the inconsistencies in Ron's defensiveness, even the deeper mystery surrounding Sirius Black. It is no accident that Rowling placed this transformation in Prisoner of Azkaban, a book centered on shifting identities, hidden truths, and revelations. Just as Sirius is not the villain he seems, and Lupin is not merely a teacher but a werewolf, so too is Hermione not merely the know-it-all she once appeared to be. She is changing, growing, trusting something deeper. Rowling seeds this character arc so subtly that it almost escapes notice. There are no dramatic declarations or long internal monologues. There is only a girl who chooses a strange, unwanted cat and then begins to see the world differently. This is literary magic at its finest. Transformation shown through action and implication, not exposition. And Crookshanks himself is a literary masterstroke. His grotesque appearance, a squashed face, bottle-brush tail, and surly demeanor makes him an outcast, a creature that doesn't belong. Yet he holds the key to unraveling one of the book's greatest mysteries. He is ugly, yet essential. Overlooked, yet all-seeing. In many ways, he is a symbol of truth itself, often strange, rarely welcome, but impossible to ignore when it finally arrives. In one scene, Ron shouts at Hermione, saying, "That cat of yours nearly killed Scabbers." But Scabbers didn't die. What nearly died was the illusion. Crookshanks saw through it. And Hermione, to her credit, chose not to silence him. Even under pressure from her closest friends, she stood by what she believed, or at least what she felt. This is not the behavior of a girl blindly following rules. This is the awakening of a young witch whose magic is beginning to come from within. The presence of Crookshanks also subtly foreshadows the role Hermione will play in the later books. In Deathly Hallows, she becomes the one who prepares, who thinks ahead, but also the one who listens to stories, to legends, to fears. She learns to read not just books, but people. The seeds of that growth were planted in the magical menagerie in the moment she chose a half-Kneazle no one else wanted. It's often said that our pets reflect our souls. In literature, this is doubly true. Crookshanks is Hermione's shadow, her instinct, her unspoken question. What if there is more than logic? And once she begins asking that, the course of her entire life changes. There are many great character arcs in the Harry Potter series. Harry's journey from the cupboard to heroism, Snape's tragic redemption, Neville's quiet rise. But Hermione's is perhaps the most understated. It is a journey not from weakness to strength, but from intellect to wisdom. And at its heart is a cat with a squashed face, yellow eyes, and a truth-sensing soul. To overlook Crookshanks is to miss one of Rowling's most artful threads. He is not decoration, he is not comic relief. He is the whisper of another kind of magic, the kind that doesn't shout, but waits patiently to be understood. And Hermione, always the brightest witch of her age, finally learns to listen. Number 25, The Trio and the Balance of Elements. There is a moment in Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone that seems almost mundane at first glance. The trio, Harry, Ron, and Hermione, must face a series of magical obstacles to protect the Philosopher's Stone. Each trial tests different qualities: logic, courage, loyalty, and quick thinking. Yet what goes unnoticed by many is how these trials mirror not only their individual strengths, but their elemental alignment, their deeper symbolic roles. Harry, with his unflinching bravery and emotional drive, embodies fire. Hermione, a beacon of logic and knowledge, channels the clarity and movement of air. Ron, often overlooked, is the grounding force, loyal and rooted like the earth itself. Together they are not merely friends, they are a magical trinity of balance, a living spell crafted by ruling with subtle precision. From the very beginning, this union is not portrayed as accidental. At the end of their first major adventure, it is Ron who sacrifices himself in the chess game, Hermione who deciphers the potion riddle, and Harry who proceeds to face Voldemort. One could argue that each challenge required the essence of their elemental selves. Ron's sacrifice was not impulsive. It was the solid, dependable loyalty of someone who knew his role. Earth grounds the team and endures. Hermione's mind sliced through the complex logic puzzle with the clarity of air, analytical, quick, and coldly efficient. Harry's confrontation with Voldemort, driven by emotion and courage, was a fiery moment of willpower. Without any one of them, the sequence would collapse. Rowling did not merely assign traits to her characters, she anchored them in ancient archetypes that echo through mythology and alchemy. This elemental symbolism deepens as the series progresses. Consider Harry's Patronus, a stag, proud, radiant, swift, an animal of the wild fire, moving by instinct and burning presence. His emotions are his compass. Whether it's bursting into rage at injustice or flinging himself headfirst into danger, Harry's choices are never calculated. Fire is a chaotic element. It consumes, but also protects. "You're the one who's weak," he tells Voldemort in the Department of Mysteries. "You'll never know love or friendship, and I feel sorry for you." This is the language of fire, hot with emotion, laced with moral certainty. Hermione's essence is the wind that shapes thought. Her strengths are intellectual, but her flaw is detachment. She is often scolded for being too by the book, too literal. But like air, she learns to shift and adapt. When she jinxes Marietta Edgecombe in Order of the Phoenix with the word sneak on her face, it's not cold revenge, it's calculated justice. She does not just read laws, she manipulates them. Her bag in Deathly Hallows, charmed to hold everything they need, is a testament to airy foresight and structure. The mind is her domain, and she inhabits it with full force. Ron, so often the comic relief, hides the slow, sturdy strength of Earth. His loyalty is unglamorous but unyielding. He is the one who returns. In Deathly Hallows, after abandoning Harry and Hermione in the tent, tortured by the Horcrux, he comes back. This return is not merely physical, it is symbolic. Earth may shake, but it endures. He admits his fear, his jealousy, his flaws. But unlike fire or air, which can change form or dissipate, Earth remains even if broken. His return saves Harry from drowning in the icy lake. In that moment, he's more than a friend. He is the gravitational pull that keeps them alive. The trio's relationship is not always harmonious. Fire can scorch earth. Air can extinguish flame. Earth can stifle air. And yet Rowling ensures that each conflict ultimately reinforces their bond. In Prisoner of Azkaban, Hermione's betrayal of Harry over the firebolt and Ron over Crookshanks is not born of malice but of logic. She does what she thinks is right. The tension that arises is real, but it is resolved through growth. Harry learns the value of restraint. Ron learns that Hermione's rigidity masks care. Hermione learns that friendship requires flexibility. In Goblet of Fire, the trio nearly fractures completely. Ron's jealousy of Harry's selection as champion and Hermione's disapproval of their feud reflects elemental misalignment. Fire burns too bright, earth grows brittle, air grows sharp, but once again, Rowling brings them back. The resolution is not dramatic, but human, an apology, a shared danger, a silent understanding. It is a slow dance of elements learning how to live together without consuming one another. Rowling's world is built on the power of names and symbolism. Albus Dumbledore, Severus Snape, Sirius Black. Each name carries weight, but it is the trio, unnamed as a unit yet ever present, who represent a deeper magic, the balance of opposites. Not the dominance of one, but the interdependence of three. In Order of the Phoenix, as the DA is formed, it is not Harry alone who teaches, but the collective energy of the trio that sustains the group. Hermione organizes, Ron encourages, Harry inspires. A fire that lights, a wind that spreads, an earth that holds firm. Even in battles, their roles reflect this triad. In the Department of Mysteries, Ron is incapacitated by the brain tentacles, not because he is weak, but because he is the one most attuned to the physical, to the body. Hermione is struck down by a curse, but survives due to her preparation. Harry presses forward, reckless but determined. They do not win because they are the best fighters. They survive because they move as a single, three-pointed star, each edge supporting the others. It is telling that when Dumbledore dies, the burden falls heaviest on Harry. Fire left without earth and air becomes destructive. In Half-Blood Prince, Harry begins to isolate himself. Ron and Hermione remain by his side, but the balance is fraying. The trio's strength comes from their closeness, and when one pulls away, the magic falters. Even during the hunt for Horcruxes, the absence of harmony leads to near disaster. The Locket Horcrux feeds on their insecurities, not just individually, but collectively. It turns fire into rage, air into judgment, earth into resentment. Rowling threads this elemental triad even through minor details. Consider the colours of their house scarves, scarlet and gold for Gryffindor, evoking fire, yes, but also the royal sun, warmth, passion. Hermione's intellect, represented by her association with Ravenclaw values, infuses the group with strategic air. Ron's connection to chess, to food, to family is grounding. In mythology, the most powerful spells required the unification of opposites, sun and moon, sky and soil, mind and heart. Rowling channels this legacy through her trio, wrapping ancient wisdom in modern robes. The prophecy itself speaks not of individual triumph, but of choice. Neither can live while the other survives. It is Harry's choice, but he survives not because of prophecy, but because of who stands beside him. In Deathly Hallows, when Harry walks to his death, he does so knowing Ron and Hermione are behind him. He carries the Resurrection Stone, not to summon power, but to summon love. Fire, air, and earth walk together to meet death. And in doing so, they cheat it. Even the Hallows themselves align with this balance. The Elder Wand, a tool of force, fire. The Cloak, a shield, an anchor to life, earth. The Stone, a bridge to memory, to the past, a whisper in the wind, air. Harry, who becomes master of all three, is only able to do so because he is not alone. He masters them not by conquest, but by understanding. He gives up power, embraces death, and lives. That is the alchemy of the trio, transformation through unity. In the final battle, when all seems lost, the trio fights together, not as soldiers, but as one entity. Ron and Hermione destroying a Horcrux in the Chamber of Secrets is not just strategy, it is ritual. The sword of Gryffindor, tempered in basilisk venom, is not wielded by Harry, but by Ron. The earth strikes true. Hermione's knowledge of where to find the cup and how to destroy it is the whisper of air guiding the flame. Harry, facing Voldemort, carries all of them within him. After the war, we see them still together, not always side by side, but still connected. The epilogue shows more than marriage or parenthood. It shows a completed circle. The elemental bond holds. In a world still healing, the balance remains. That is the final message hidden beneath the magic. Not power, not victory, but balance. J.K. Rowling did not announce this symbolism aloud, but wove it silently into the story's spine. Like an ancient rune hidden beneath layers of ink, the message waits for those who look deeper. Harry is not a lone hero. He is the flame that guides. Hermione is not just a brilliant witch. She is the wind that carries. Ron is not just comic relief. He is the stone that endures, and together they are more than the sum of their parts. They are an ancient truth that no force stands alone and wins. The trio is the soul of the series, its quiet heart. In their unity lies the deeper spell, older than magic itself. Fire burns, air thinks, earth remains, but only together do they change the world. Number 26, Dobby the House Elf, the voice of freedom. Of all the creatures to stride into Harry Potter's world with nothing but a pillowcase and trembling courage, Dobby the House Elf is perhaps the most deceptively important. Introduced in Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, he seems at first a source of comic relief. His bulging green eyes, high-pitched squeals, and his habit of punishing himself for even the mildest disobedience make him appear more eccentric than dangerous, more foolish than brave. But J.K. Rowling planted a subtle clue from the beginning. This funny little elf would go on to commit acts of astounding defiance, making him a quiet yet thunderous voice of freedom in a world where slavery was cloaked in tradition and silence. The magical society that surrounds Harry is steeped in inequality, though much of it is accepted as the natural order. House elves, like Dobby, are one of the clearest manifestations of this disparity. Born into servitude, most elves take pride in their loyalty, obedience, and submission. They bind themselves to their masters with unbreakable magical oaths and are often invisible to the larger narrative. They exist in the margins, cleaning the Hogwarts kitchens and scrubbing ministry offices, never demanding recognition. And yet it is Dobby, a creature supposedly born to serve, who chooses to resist. From his very first appearance, Dobby's actions shatter expectations. He sneaks into Harry's room at Privet Drive, a punishable offence in his world, and pleads with him not to return to Hogwarts. His methods are questionable. He levitates a cake to sabotage a dinner, nearly gets Harry expelled, and continues to self-harm out of fear. But his motives are pure. What the reader initially sees as comic interference is actually the first open act of rebellion by a creature who has been conditioned his entire life to obey. Dobby does not just go against his master's wishes, he violates the very code of his species. His master, as it is later revealed, is Lucius Malfoy, a man of great power, cruelty, and influence. For Dobby to act against Lucius is not merely an act of civil disobedience, it is treason against the hierarchy of magic itself. When Lucius Malfoy discovers Dobby's interference, he threatens him with death, as if snuffing out the life of a house elf is no more serious than breaking a wand. But Dobby does not back down. This is the first whisper of freedom. The act of setting Dobby free is done, ironically, by the very man who enslaved him. When Harry tricks Lucius into giving Dobby a sock, the symbolic token of freedom for house elves, something tectonic shifts in the magical world. Rowling doesn't belabor the point, but this moment is rich with meaning. Dobby's trembling fingers grasping that sock are not just celebrating his escape from a cruel household, they are reclaiming identity. Dobby is free, he says, and it is the first time we see an elf smile without fear. In that instant, Rowling flips the reader's expectations on their head. The supposedly weak creature is now stronger in spirit than the powerful man who once ruled over him. Freedom, however, does not make Dobby complacent. Rather than fade into the background, Dobby continues to insert himself into the larger battles shaping the wizarding world. He finds work at Hogwarts, not out of necessity, but out of choice. He is offered pay, clothes, and freedom of expression, an unprecedented arrangement among his kind. When Hermione starts her SPEW campaign to liberate house elves, most elves reject her efforts as insulting. They are so deeply indoctrinated that they cannot even imagine wanting freedom. But Dobby is the exception. He is the living proof that elves can live, think, and act beyond the rigid traditions imposed on them. Dobby's rebellion deepens as the series progresses. In Goblet of Fire, he risks punishment once again to give Harry gillyweed before the Triwizard Tournament's second task, an action that helps Harry save Ron and Fleur's sister from drowning. It's a quiet moment, easy to overlook, but crucial. Dobby, now unbound, continues to place himself in danger to help those he believes in. He does this not out of obligation, but love. It's the kind of loyalty that no curse or spell can manufacture, the kind that is born from conscience and free will. It is in order of the Phoenix that Dobby becomes something even greater, a protector. When the secret of the Room of Requirement is needed, it is Dobby who reveals it to Harry. When the members of Dumbledore's army need a safe place to practice defense, Dobby gives them that space. It is no accident that the elf, the creature most oppressed by magical society, is the one to unlock the door to resistance. Rowling uses this gesture not as a throwaway plot device, but as a symbolic statement. Those who know the true meaning of servitude are often the first to recognize the scent of oppression in the air. In Half-Blood Prince, Dobby's role becomes even more daring. He is employed to spy on Draco Malfoy, who has returned to Hogwarts under mysterious circumstances. Alongside Kreacher, a house elf formerly loyal to the Black family, Dobby proves that even the lowest in magical hierarchy can challenge the might of powerful pure-blood families. Kreacher and Dobby represent two diverging paths, one twisted by hatred, the other empowered by compassion. It is Dobby, of course, who endures and inspires, but it is in Deathly Hallows that Dobby's arc reaches its tragic and triumphant peak. When Harry and his friends are captured and taken to Malfoy Manor, it is Dobby who comes to rescue them. He apparates into the very place of his former enslavement, risking everything. He stands before Bellatrix Lestrange, one of the most dangerous Death Eaters, and does not flinch. He disarms her with a flick of his magic and delivers Luna, Dean, Ollivander, and finally Harry and Griphook to safety. As they vanish from the manor, a knife is thrown. It strikes Dobby. He dies in Harry's arms. His final words, "Such a beautiful place to be with friends." Dobby is happy to be with his friend, Harry Potter. This moment is one of the most heart-wrenching in the entire saga. Not because a beloved character dies, but because of what Dobby's death represents. A creature who was born into slavery, who was told he was less than human, who was mocked even by those who cared about him, gave his life for the cause of freedom. Rowling does not treat his death lightly. Harry, so often distracted by the war, stops everything to bury Dobby by hand. No magic, no shortcuts. A grave is dug, and on the stone is carved, "Here lies Dobby, a free elf." That phrase hits with the weight of history. It is a eulogy and a revolution in 6 words. For a world that has long ignored the plight of its magical underclass, this is a reckoning. Harry's gesture is a tribute, yes, but it is also an accusation. Why did it take so long for anyone to see what Dobby truly was? Throughout the series, Rowling uses Dobby to pose uncomfortable questions. Why is it that elves are bound by magic in a supposedly just society? Why do wizards, even kind ones like Dumbledore, perpetuate systems where entire species remain enslaved? Dobby forces the reader to confront the hypocrisies of the magical world. He is not simply a tool for Harry's success. He is a mirror reflecting the blind spots of even the most noble characters. The fact that Dobby was never trained to rebel, never taught the language of resistance, makes his choices all the more powerful. Unlike Hermione, he had no education in rights and justice. Unlike Harry, he had no one to tell him he was special. Everything Dobby did, every act of defiance, every choice to protect rather than obey, came from within. That makes him not only rare, but extraordinary. Rowling embeds this message deep in the text. At first glance, it is easy to see Dobby as a side character, but his arc follows a classical heroic structure: humble beginnings, trials of loyalty, and a noble death. In many ways, he is the inverse of the Death Eaters. They follow orders without question, even when they know it's wrong. Dobby questions everything, even when it could cost him his life. He is a child of trauma, but he does not let that trauma define him. He is shaped by cruelty, but not consumed by it. In a world where creatures are often judged by their blood or species, Dobby teaches the reader that nobility comes from action, not ancestry. He is more than a house elf. He is a revolutionary in rags. One of Rowling's quietest but most powerful accomplishments is that she never gives Dobby a grand speech about justice. He does not speak of freedom in political terms, he simply lives it. He chooses whom to help, he chooses whom to serve, and when it matters most, he chooses to die not for a master, but for a friend. Dobby's story is also a condemnation of indifference. So many characters, including the heroes, ignore the plight of house elves. Even Ron, who grows to love Dobby, once laughed at the idea of elf rights. And yet, in the end, it is Dobby who changes minds, not by demanding attention, but by earning respect. His legacy is not in loud proclamations, but in quiet revolutions. What makes Dobby unforgettable is not magic, but spirit, the kind that cannot be cursed or silenced. Rowling hid this truth in plain sight. By the time readers realize Dobby's true role, they are already mourning him, and perhaps questioning a world that allowed creatures like him to suffer unseen. In that way, Dobby is more than a character. He is a whisper of rebellion in a world of silence, a small, shaking voice that grows stronger with every page, a reminder that even those born in chains can shatter them, and that sometimes the bravest soul wears no armor but a sock. Number 27. Hogwarts moving staircases, the path of change. Of all the enchanting wonders hidden within the ancient stone walls of Hogwarts Castle, the shifting staircases remain among the most iconic. At first glance, they seem like nothing more than a whimsical element of magic, quirky and harmless, as if designed solely to amuse first years and frustrate punctuality. But beneath their erratic movements lies something far deeper. These staircases are not merely enchanted architecture. They are a metaphor embedded in the very heart of the story. J.K. Rowling, ever the master of subtlety, gave life to this mechanical maze not simply for spectacle, but to reflect the unpredictable, often disorienting nature of life itself. The staircases of Hogwarts do not obey logic. They twist, turn, and change direction without warning. Sometimes they lead to a dead end. Other times, they deliver the student to an entirely different floor. They don't follow the rules of gravity or consistency. And in this deliberate chaos lies the first truth. At Hogwarts, and in life, nothing is fixed. Just as a character believes they are on a certain path, the floor beneath them shifts. Rowling constructed a world that moves. She ensured that readers, like her characters, could never remain too comfortable in one place. In Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, when Harry first encounters the staircases, he is still a boy of 11, wide-eyed and new to the magical world. The shifting steps bewilder him. There were 142 staircases at Hogwarts, wide, sweeping ones, narrow, rickety ones, some that led somewhere different on a Friday, the narrator tells us. This detail is often read for amusement as a charming addition to a fantastical school, but what Rowling truly presents is the introduction of chaos into order, a theme that will haunt Harry's entire journey. Each time Harry and his friends attempt to move forward, something disrupts their progress. Their path veers. They are sent back, sideways, even downward. The staircases are the first lesson in navigating the unpredictable. Hermione Granger, the most logical and prepared of the trio, finds even her vast knowledge insufficient when confronted with a school that refuses to remain still. Her reliance on rules is constantly challenged by a building that thrives on breaking them. The staircases don't respond to planning. They demand adaptability. The moving staircases become most symbolic when considered alongside the trio's evolving sense of purpose. In their first year, their destination is simple: avoid trouble, survive classes, and perhaps unravel a mystery. Yet, with each year, the goal becomes murkier. Good and evil blend, allies shift, enemies change. The staircases, always in flux, mirror the internal transformations of the characters. Ron Weasley, for instance, who begins as a tag-along younger brother, grows into a loyal strategist. His confidence doesn't build in a straight line. He falters, makes mistakes, loses faith in his friends. But like the staircases, his journey is full of redirections that ultimately lead to the right place. One of the most poignant examples of the staircases reflecting internal change occurs in Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. This is the first time Harry is forced to confront the complexity of truth. What he believed about his parents' death, that the betrayal was simple, that the villain was clear, is upended. The castle itself echoes this confusion. The layout is more disorienting than ever. New passageways reveal themselves. Time, quite literally, turns back on itself. The time turner Hermione uses adds another layer to the symbolism. Paths not taken, futures altered, choices reversible. Hogwarts, through its ever-shifting corridors and staircases, becomes a metaphor for a life where even time bends. Another moment worth examining appears in The Half-Blood Prince, when Harry is chasing Draco Malfoy through the castle. The building itself resists clarity. Doors vanish, corridors stretch, staircases lead Harry away from where he wants to go. Here, Rowling is not just building tension, she's illustrating the desperation of youth trying to uncover truth in a world that won't cooperate. Harry's pursuit of Draco mirrors his pursuit of meaning. The path is winding, obscured, and often punishes persistence. Yet it is this struggle that defines him. Neville Longbottom's development also finds its quiet reflection in the staircases, often lost, literally and figuratively. In the early books, Neville is the very embodiment of uncertainty. He forgets passwords, misplaces possessions, and often gets turned around, not just by the castle's magic, but by his own fear of inadequacy. Yet the moving staircases are as much his story as anyone's. They disorient him, but they also teach him. By the Deathly Hallows, it is Neville who navigates the crumbling castle with unshakable purpose, leading the resistance. He no longer fears where the stairs might take him. He chooses his path, and when necessary, carves new ones. Even Dumbledore, the embodiment of wisdom in the series, once warned Harry, "It does not do to dwell on dreams and forget to live." The staircases offer no map, no certainty. One must keep moving, stumbling, correcting, persisting. This is Dumbledore's quiet lesson to Harry, delivered not in words, but in the ever-changing corridors that force movement. Dumbledore, too, has spent a life on these twisting staircases, both literal and metaphorical, and learned to walk them with grace. Rowling often anchors emotional development in physical action. When characters ascend the stairs, they are usually heading into mystery. When they descend, they go into danger. But sometimes the most transformative moments occur when the staircases themselves intervene, dragging a character somewhere they never meant to go. Harry and Ron's detour into the third-floor corridor in Philosopher's Stone is such a moment. What began as a wrong turn becomes the first step toward heroism. The path wasn't chosen, it was thrust upon them. The castle decided they were ready. There is something almost sentient about Hogwarts, as if it knows what each student needs. The staircases test them, redirect them, refuse to offer ease, but in doing so, they shape the students more profoundly than any class. When the staircases carry Harry to new dangers, they also lead him to revelations. When they delay him, they give him time to think. When they mislead him, they sharpen his instincts. The staircases are not obstacles, they are catalysts. Even the Marauder's map, that magical parchment revealing the secrets of the castle, cannot predict the staircases. Messrs. Mooney, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs could map out every secret passage and forbidden hallway, but they could not tame the unpredictability of the stairs. This detail is crucial. Not even the most mischievous, clever, rule-defying students could impose order on that chaos. The staircases remain untouchable, one element of Hogwarts that resists even the most skilled hands. The unpredictability of the staircases also serves as a metaphor for identity. As the series progresses, every character must confront who they are, and that confrontation rarely comes easily. Hermione, the perfectionist, must accept failure. Ron must see himself as more than a sidekick. Harry must accept his own darkness. These truths are not found at the end of a straight path. They are uncovered through wrong turns, through missteps, through journeys that begin in confusion. The theme resurfaces in The Order of the Phoenix when Harry's world is crumbling with the return of Voldemort. He is isolated, doubted, and burdened by visions. The castle becomes less familiar, more foreboding. Even the staircases feel more treacherous, as if the very walls of Hogwarts reflect his emotional state. And yet Harry keeps walking, even when the way is unclear, even when the stairs seem to lead nowhere, he climbs. In this way, Rowling uses the staircases not just as world-building, but as emotional architecture. They rise and fall as the characters do. They block and reveal. They confound and guide. They are not random. They are mirrors. And as such, they are among the most powerful tools in Rowling's storytelling. Consider also the symbolism of height. When characters ascend, they often gain clarity or insight. Dumbledore's office, for instance, is reached by a spiraling staircase hidden behind a gargoyle that demands a password. The journey upward is both literal and symbolic. Knowledge, truth, and perspective reside at the top. But one must first navigate uncertainty to reach it. When Fred and George Weasley stage their grand exit in Order of the Phoenix, they do so by flying down from the upper floors, descending the staircases on brooms and disappearing into the sky. Their rebellion takes shape not just in words but in motion. They defy the rules of both the school and the staircases. Their flight becomes freedom. But even this act is shaped by the architecture that surrounds them. The Battle of Hogwarts in Deathly Hallows drives home the metaphor in devastating fashion. The castle collapses, staircases break, pathways are buried. Yet in the rubble, characters find clarity. The literal destruction of the school mirrors the final reckoning each character must face. But even as the walls fall, the spirit of Hogwarts, unpredictable, alive, endures. Perhaps the greatest testament to the staircases lies in the way they never stop. Even as generations pass, even as wars are fought and peace returns, the stairs keep moving. Hogwarts remains a place of change. And in that change, Rowling gives her readers a final gift, the truth that transformation is not only inevitable, it is necessary. By embedding this truth in something as mundane as a staircase, Rowling ensures we never forget it. The lesson is hidden in plain sight, like so much of her magic. To reach your destination, you may have to double back, you may have to get lost, you may have to take the long way, but every turn matters, every step counts, even the ones that seem wrong, especially the ones that seem wrong.